2, 1.
Recording in progress.
Good evening and welcome to the February 5th, 2026 regular meeting of the school committee. Before I get started, I'm just going to take a point of personal privilege to just give a shout out to our students at Brookline High who gathered together at Town Hall yesterday to protest the actions of ICE around the country. So very brave in my opinion, and really the product of thoughtful education and yeah, just engaging human beings. So thanks to them. First up, we have our consent agenda. We have 3 items on the consent agenda: the approval of the past record, January 22nd, 2026, our accounts payable report, and a student trip, the Brookline High squash team going to Philadelphia during the February break. Does someone want to move the consent agenda in its entirety?
So moved.
Seconded.
Bob moves and Jesse seconds. Bob, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Jesse?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
Is Carolyn there?
No.
I vote yes. I don't see Mariah or Carolyn. Was I missing anybody?
Wasn't Mariah online a minute ago? No. Oh, she dropped off? Okay, sorry.
Next up is administrative business. I want to wait for Mariah for number 2A.
She's losing.
Can we start with 2B, please? Possible vote to authorize Steps to Success to serve beer and wine during their annual 2026 Step Up celebration on April 15th. As folks know, because students will be present, these come to us for a vote. Is there a motion to approve 2B?
So moved.
Jesse moves, second.
Second.
Donna seconds. Bob, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Jesse?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Who am I missing? Donna?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. Carolyn, would you like to vote on 2B?
Steps to Success license.
Yes.
And Carolyn also votes yes. So on, Jesse, do you want to lead us on 2A since Mariah is not here yet?
Sure. So at the last Finance and Capital Subcommittee meeting, there was a motion made to rename the existing staff materials fee program to non-resident employee tuition program. The basic reasons for that were that the word materials tends to make an impression on folks that it's things like pencils and crayons and paper and folders and 3-ring binders, maybe even books and other educational supplies. Yet, in the presentation that was given by Mariah at our last meeting, she indicated that there are many other services provided to students in public school that are not only materials, things like learning support, if required within for that student, and other legal services, and a larger gamut of services provided by the public schools in addition to what we would put into a bucket called materials. And we discussed for a while what an alternate term could be, and rather than the word materials, we proposed, moved, and voted on making it sort of as clear as possible that as we're talking about teachers that work for the public schools of Brookline who are non-residents, that's where that part came from. The program is like the materials fee program, but instead a tuition program. And the tuition is essentially let's just say a small piece of what it actually, as we know, costs to have a student in the public school system. And currently, it's not exactly tied to what it actually costs for a resident student, but at some point in the future, perhaps that'll be part of the school committee's deliberation, or finance first and then school committees, is to find a way to actually tie it together so that there is even more clarity. But for the moment, moving forward, we felt that it was appropriate to make the name change. And it was moved and approved by the subcommittee to be brought here for discussion. Oh, Mariah's here. Okay.
Mariah, do you have anything to add to
One
that?
No, I think Jesse did a very good job. Thank you, Jesse.
Okay. So Jesse, are you moving adoption or confirmation of this vote?
Yeah, well, yes, I would move it, and then it would go to guest discussion, and then a
Oh,
possible
we need a
vote, please.
second. Yeah. Is there a
I'll
second?
second.
Mariah seconds. Discussion. Bob, you have your,
We're having we're voting?
no, discussion. I thought you wanted to speak on this.
Oh,
Did you
I
want?
didn't raise my hand.
Oh,
Okay.
it was Carolyn, Sarah, and Val, and Suzanne.
Okay. Carolyn and then Sarah.
Okay, thanks, Val. So when we discussed and voted at the last meeting on the fee issue, in my comments, I said that I want and need some more unpacking of this. The discussion of the program has sort of taken a bit of a new turn. We have a policy that has certain wording. We have an agreement that our parents are asked to sign, which is in front of me. The agreement uses the term materials fee. And there are other aspects of the program that have come up recently that for me, I need more understanding. And my concerns encompass this notion of a name change for various reasons, and other ways that we do other things in the district. So I am not prepared to vote for a name change. I'll be voting no.
Okay. Sarah?
Similarly, I will be voting no, and I think that where we're at is we figured out that we do want to have a rationale if we're going to be charging families, and we also are very confused as to whether this is a benefit to try to help retain teachers and town employees. So I just don't think that we've really gotten clarity yet on where we want to go with this. I think that there is interest in getting clarity and discussing this further. And I think that we should spend some more time sort of figuring out our values about this one. So I will be voting no to the name change.
Suzanne and then Mariah?
Go ahead.
Suzanne, Donna, Mariah, sorry.
So thank you. I just want to start off by saying thank you to everyone who wrote to us. We had many, many emails, and we did read them all. Well, I'm sure we all did, but I certainly did. And also, they were unique emails, so it wasn't just a standard copy and paste. People really spoke with passion and deep feelings. And so I find that persuasive, and I don't see any reason, quite frankly, to change. If everyone wants it as materials fee program, it means the same thing to me, one or the other. And so I would vote no on the name change.
Donna and then Mariah.
I think I had more of a, Sorry, Val. I had more of a clarifying question because in the policy, and I'm curious, Carolyn, you referenced the policy as well. In the policy, it specifies non-resident teachers' children, right? Under the section, it's non-resident students, and then there's non-resident full tuition paying students, and then non-resident school and town employees' children. So I guess I feel like I feel like I am coming in on like episode 3 of a series, and maybe like I'm not quite understanding what the response is to the word tuition. And so I would love to understand that better.
I'm not sure if
I'm
anybody's going to
only-
directly
oh.
respond to you. Are you going to directly respond, Carolyn?
I think so, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I don't know that I can provide the clarification. I printed out and have in front of me J, I don't know what the number is then, C, admission of children of non-resident employees of the town of Brookline. So I don't have in front of me tuition paying. I don't even know what that means. Maybe it means something else, and so maybe someone can answer that. So I do think, and again, this is part of if the word tuition is used in reference to this program in policy, that's not consistent with the agreement that employees are given to read and to put their signature on. So that inconsistency alone is of concern to me. But I guess I'm curious to what the tuition even refers to in the policy.
So we're
Mariah?
no,
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Mariah.
I'm glad, Donna, that you referenced the policy, because I think that the policy wording, we're trying to make consistency with the policy wording by making clear, and the fact that, as Jesse alluded to, the materials fee implies that it's somehow physical materials, or people think that when there's much more that contributes to this. But with that said, like, I don't feel particularly strongly about doing this right now. It seems like it's causing feelings that I really don't think are actually needed either way. So I think maybe we should just let it go. And whether or not the vote passes or not, it's just not worth like the upset that is caused. So we should, I guess I seconded the motion, but I don't feel strongly about it. And I'm glad we're having the conversation. There's enough confusion and whatever, and it's just not that important. So let's keep going and do stuff that really does, make a difference. We don't need to change the name if it's going to upset people.
Jesse, would you withdraw your motion, or do you want to keep it on the table?
Andy raised his hand. But
Oh, Andy?
meanwhile, so.
I disagree with the idea that this isn't important. I think it is important because it determines whether we really think of this, or it expresses whether we think of this primarily as a benefit or as a revenue raising scheme. And in my book, it's always been mainly a benefit. And I think for that reason, we should keep it the way it is, even though, yeah, materials fee is a little misleading, but not so misleading as changing it would be.
I'm glad you brought that up, because you reminded me of something that I meant to say and forgot, which is there seems to be this common thread of people saying somehow like benefits aren't also a shared cost. And I would just point out that, for example, the health insurance of the town is a benefit and a shared cost. And many of us, no matter who our employers are, most certainly have health insurance that is a benefit and a shared cost. So this idea that there is somehow this duality between benefits and things that employees contribute to is not true. And we should just be realistic about that. Things can be benefits and they can have employee contributions to them.
That I agree with. I think to call it tuition definitely suggests that it's revenue raising. That's why I oppose it.
Well, that is in fact a factual statement that it does raise revenue, but not as its main purpose. Jesse, would you withdraw your motion? I agree with Mariah and others that it's not necessarily worth.
Donna and Bob have their hands up, Val.
Oh, Donna and then Bob.
You can skip, it's fine. I think if we're withdrawing the motion.
Well, I'm not sure if we are, but
Okay.
Bob?
Yeah, I was very persuaded by the letters that came in. And I think everybody knows what the materials fee is and has been since 1972. The term tuition gets me a little nervous in terms of a slippery slope, so I strongly oppose the change.
So with that said, I think in Finance Subcommittee, we struggled to try to find a more nuanced term and did not find it. If at this time it's causing, unnecessary consternation in the middle of all the other chaos in our lives and around us, it may probably make sense at this point to park it for a little while. And so, following on what Mariah had suggested as well, I would withdraw it.
Okay, thank you, Jesse.
Sure.
Moving on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you. I just have a couple of acknowledgements. I'll be presenting the budget later. So this is, first, I want to thank the DPW. We haven't had so much snow in such a long time, and I just appreciate how professional they were to just take on everything that they did. It was a lot of snow. And they removed a lot of snow. They hauled it away. They brought 18-wheelers in and they hauled it away. And there's still a lot of snow, which kind of underscores what a task that they had to clear. And I'm sure they must have taken breaks, but it seemed like they didn't stop doing what they needed to do through the whole storm. And I have previously worked in districts with more open space to dump the snow. So I also appreciate that while there was a lot of snow, it's very limited where you can park that snow. And I just wanted to appreciate what they did. I know that they really focused on clearing spots for staff. And as everyone must know, our staff park mostly on the street. But of course, we're not used to the storms and whatever etiquette that might mean. But when the staff arrived to schools, of course, it's only natural that residents saw open spots, so they parked in the spot. So some of our staff were left scrambling that morning. And so it also gives me an opportunity to appreciate what our staff had to do in the beginning to scramble to find parking spaces. And I know in some cases it annoyed other residents that staff were parking where they're not supposed to park, but it's because their spaces that have been cleared were occupied. And just to remind everyone that in the moment there were children in school waiting for them, so they really didn't have much choice. So I think on the behalf of everyone, sorry that we might have annoyed people by parking in places we weren't necessarily supposed to be, but thank you to DBW for accommodating and trying to do their best to clear for us. And continue to make sure that we had safe spaces. And it was just a huge task that they undertook. And so just thanks to everyone and understanding. The other thing I wanted to appreciate, or the other group I want to appreciate, is our Boston Police, our Brookline Police Department. We, as you know, we had a lockdown at the high school. We received a call. It was a perceived threat. It never turned into an actual threat. But when you get those calls, you have to do what you need to do. And so there was a lockdown, and I felt so well supported by the police department and the quickness of their response and the magnitude of their response, and also maintaining presence after they had cleared the site and determined that there wasn't an actual threat and let us go on and proceed. And also for all our students that had especially at the high school, that were having midterms, and how they had midterms on Friday and then they weren't in school Monday, Tuesday, and then they had exams Wednesday, and then Thursday they had a lockdown. So just all that means to kids and their adaptability and everyone just going with the flow as things happen. When you get calls like that, you have to shut down and do what you need to do. So thank you for that to them, and also to the police department for supporting us. I have a shout out for our Matt Dubois. Yes. So Karen Schmuckler announced this to everyone. So I think maybe many of you already know this, but Matt Dubois, he was selected as the recipient of the 2026 Outstanding Practitioner Contribution Award recognition by the National Association of School Psychologists Dissemination and Implementation Practice and Science Interest Group. And it's just a big deal to be recognized at a national level like that. The annual award recognizes practicing school psychologists who have made significant contributions to advancing dissemination and implementation science in educational settings. Matt is being recognized nationally for his innovative work in supporting evidence-based social emotional learning practices in the public schools of Brookline. And specifically, he is acknowledged for his systemic work in facilitating the adoption of evidence-based SEL practices in schools, applying implementation science frameworks to SEL practice, bridging research and practice through consultation and implementation, and making meaningful contributions to the advancement of school psychology practice. So being honored in bridging research to practice. So congratulations to Matt, and we're very proud of him. And yes. And so starting with DPW and then the Brookline Police and then our Matt Dubois, I'd like to finish with recognizing the accomplishments of some of our students in recent junior, senior, and all-state music festivals. So for the Junior District Festival auditions, which is grades 7 through 9, and senior districts are grades 10 through 12, our students participated. They had a 59% acceptance rate with 44 students auditioning and 26 students accepted. Of the students that were accepted, there were 12 first chairs and 9 second chairs. I'm so impressed by that. And then earlier this year at the Senior District Festival auditions, 51 students auditioned and 24 were accepted. Of the students that were accepted, there were 5 first chairs and 11 second chairs. Again, so impressed. And then when you are in senior districts, you get invited to apply or audition for the all-state festival auditions. And so it goes to the top 50% of the students that participate in the district festivals. And so this year, 15 students were invited to audition. And of the 14 that auditioned, 12 were accepted to the all-state festival. And out of this group, they earned, and this is like, anyway, they earned 3 first chairs and 3 second chairs. It's really, really, really amazing. So not to just be accepted, but to be recognized as first and second chairs. And it's not just their musicality that's recognized when they're chosen for that, it's also their ability to lead a section. So congratulations to everyone on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Wong. Next up, we have public comment. Just as a reminder, we provide 15 minutes of public comment at this portion of the meeting. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Betsy is our timekeeper. We take folks in the order that they signed up. First, we have Matt Durant, followed by Mark Goldner. And Betsy will start recording when she's back at her seat.
Good evening. My name is Matt Durant, and for 26 years at Hayes School, I've dedicated myself to this community. I'm deeply alarmed by the proposed cuts that you'll hear about later tonight around the Education Technology Specialist, or ETS program. Brookline's strategic plan is rooted in innovation, pledging to provide every student with an extraordinary education through enriching experiences so they may develop to their fullest potential. The ETS team integrates technology to drive innovation. We transform classrooms into creative hubs, bringing the district's strategic plan to life by equipping our students with essential skills and our teachers with vital support. We invite you to our schools to witness our impact. And while you're there, you'll see that the ETS is dedicate our days to teaching students, purposely integrating technology to deepen their learning while modeling best practices to our fellow educators. You'll notice us fostering a supportive community through collaboration. We co-plan units, provide personal professional development, cross-pollinate the best ideas, and encourage reflective practices. Our collaborations empower educators to continually improve and ensure that success scales school-wide. ETSs, you'll see us working behind the scenes to ensure that technology integrates seamlessly into each day's routine. When a projector fails, potentially ruining a teacher's class, we quickly restore it. When a student's MCAS test stalls and panic begins to set in, we resolve it without delay. So we see history repeating itself here. Brookline has previously rejected an identical 50% cut after a massive outcry from parents, educators, and leadership. They recognized then, as we do now, that this is not about efficiency. It is a chainsaw taken to the collaborative model that drives our innovation. If enacted, these cuts will fundamentally diminish our Brookline students' experience. Reduced ETS time leads to inconsistent and delayed student support. Less collaboration increases teacher workloads and threatens instructional quality. Cutting PD leaves educators ill-equipped for ever-changing technology and best practices. Cuts to Brookline innovators are not new. The district has gutted the Enrichment and Challenge program, literacy coaches and specialists, and math specialists. We must learn from these past mistakes, which have consistently led to less support, larger workloads, and less innovative teaching and learning. Having the EST team would severely weaken Brookline's ability to innovate. I urge our administrators and our school committee to preserve our program as it stands, protecting the high standard of education our community expects and our students deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Next, we have Mark Goldner, followed by Carrie Hibbard.
Good evening. My name is Mark Goldner. I've taught science at the Hayes School for 24 years. I'm here because I'm deeply concerned by the current budget proposals. And tonight I want to talk specifically want to address the destructive way that language is being used to mask their real impact. In the proposal that you hear about later, the elimination of vital educator positions is called efficiencies. Let's be clear, these are not efficiencies. These are service reductions that will directly damage student success. Consider the proposal to cut a guidance counselor at Driscoll. You're taking a caseload of over 500 students and collapsing it from 3 counselors down to 2. That's a 50% increase in workload for the guidance counselors left. At a time when students face unprecedented stress, your efficiency ensures fewer students will receive support. It's a bitter irony that this particular proposal arrives during National School Counselors Week. Consider the proposed cut that you just heard about of the ETS positions. You're reducing instruction in digital literacy, AI navigation, engineering, and other educational innovations at the exact moment that these skills have become essential for success, shifting these duties and the other ETS duties, such as coordinating tech during MCAS and access testing, onto classroom teachers and overburdened vice principals doesn't create efficiency. It merely shifts these burdens onto fewer people, reducing their ability to serve students. Furthermore, the proposed elimination of a special education and ETF positions ensures that our most vulnerable students lose the support they are legally and morally entitled to. How does that make us more efficient? We need plain and honest language here. Our educators are not inefficient. They are overstretched and undervalued. These cuts prove that you are not listening. We are at a breaking point. We have told you this through our workload contract proposal. Yet, instead of addressing the workload crisis, you are intensifying it. The real problem is that town finances are being controlled by budget hawks who would rather hoard tens of millions of dollars in a rainy day fund than invest in our schools. I understand that demanding more money requires political courage. If you're unwilling to show that courage, okay, but be honest about it. Don't hide behind the word efficiency. Tell the public that once again, you accept an austerity budget. Tell us which services you are abandoning. Tell us that you choose to devalue tech literacy and mental health and special education. Tell us that you no longer value retention of teachers through a robust materials fee program. Tell us in plain language that Brookline students must lose out so the town can sit on a surplus. Please stop the word games. Reject these cuts. Prioritize our students by supporting the educators who support them.
Thank you, Mark. Next, we have Carrie, followed by Liz Sullivan.
My name is Carrie Hibbard. I'm a counselor at the Driscoll School. I have been working in the Brookline Public Schools for 20 years, 18 of them as a Driscoll counselor. I'm speaking tonight in hopes that the school committee members refuse to accept a budget that requires the reduction of a counselor FTE. My understanding is it's being taken from Driscoll, and it is being explained as a fiscal efficiency. I hope by the end of my 3 minutes, you will see that the reduction in a counselor will not make Driscoll more efficient. Our robust model of prevention services will no longer exist. We will be deficient. Our services will be forced to be in a reactive triage model, and we will not meet our students' needs. Currently, all Driscoll elementary students receive high-quality Tier 1 instruction in SEL. All students learn important skills for emotion management, problem-solving, and social awareness. All K-5 students have the opportunity to participate in school belonging or specific skill-building groups. Most will have participated in this prevention-based service between 2 and 4 times during their elementary school years. Cutting a counselor at Driscoll spreads the remaining 2 over 9 grade levels, 28 classrooms, and approximately 520 students. We are still growing. The K-5 Tier 1 services will be drastically reduced at Driscoll, if not eliminated. There will be a reduction in the number of K-5 school belonging groups and skill building groups available and less counselor availability to support individual students and families. Because we have built a robust Tier 1 counseling program, I can confidently say that we know all of our students. They know us. We are the trusted adults that students and families feel safe and comfortable with when seeking help. On a daily basis, we set goals, make plans, and work with students to build skills to help them through friendship conflicts, anxiety, depression, emotional and behavioral regulation challenges, and when a problem arises outside of school, like family illness, the loss of a grandparent, a pet, divorce, trauma, or community violence, Driscoll students and families know they have pretty quick access to their counselor. And because of our Tier 1 work, we have shared language, tools, and strategies already taught, and we can work quickly and calmly towards a positive outcome. I would call that really efficient. For the size of our school, there isn't enough time in the day or day in the week for 2 counselors to provide prevention programming and respond to immediate student distress. We must respond to this distress first. Cutting a counselor will have a snowball effect. Without the ability to use a prevention model, we will see the rise in the number of students with anxiety, depression, behavioral dysregulation, thoughts of self-harm, suicidal ideation, and school refusal. Reactive support will consume our days. I know, I've already lived that. I've been here 18 years. Research also tells us that. That's also the award that Matt just won for, research-based prevention practices. And thank you for your time, and I implore you to refuse this cut in the counselor to the budget.
Thank you, Carrie. Next is Liz Sullivan, followed by Stella Eagle.
My name is Elizabeth Sullivan. I'm a 3rd and 4th grade Learning Center teacher at Driscoll. On Tuesday, January 13th, you sat in this room as my negotiating team colleagues and I talked at length about the many years we have been overworked and unable to do our jobs with fidelity. You didn't seem to hear us, since you then turned around and eliminated positions you feel are inefficient. To suggest that there is any extra within our schools when our educators feel like they are drowning and have been drowning for years is grossly untrue. Our classroom teachers are barely making it through the curriculum due to the many other roles they play inside their classrooms. And now they can be expected to add tech support to the list of demands placed on them each day. At Driscoll, we are in a brand new building filled with technology. We have smartboards and mic systems in every room. And while that's wonderful, it means that we are in constant need of support from our ed tech specialist. Having that support unavailable to us each day may mean that curriculum is unable to be taught, given that most of our resources are on the computer. And it's not like printing out materials is a reasonable fallback plan because our copy machines rarely work. Not only are you reducing the amount of tech support available to our teachers and students, but also likely eliminating technology and computer classes in entirety. Currently, our ETS goes into every single K-6 classroom once a week to teach students a wide range of skills, including typing, using the Google Suite, coding, and making online books and presentations. As a special educator, this is a time when many of my students truly feel successful, and it's a small part of their school week they look forward to. To remove this opportunity from our classrooms would be devastating to so many of our students. In addition to the many demands placed on our teachers, students' social, emotional, and behavioral needs are higher than ever. This is not new information, yet instead of continuing to support our students, you are choosing to eliminate one of our guidance counselors. Our clinical staff will be spread thin and our students will be getting far less attention and support. The cascade effect on all of our students and staff will be undeniable. When a student is in crisis, the few providers remaining will have to leave sessions to respond and continue to cancel sessions as the crisis progresses. Unless you genuinely believe paying for compensatory services, lawsuits, and 45-day mental health placements is more efficient than maintaining a position that is desperately needed, this cut is completely illogical. Driscoll is not the smallest school, yet we are the school with the least amount of clinical and special education support. Smaller schools than ours have additional FTEs and BCBAs, social workers, and psychologists. To exclusively look at guidance numbers is not telling the full story about social, emotional, behavioral support available. These cuts are absolutely unfathomable to those of us who are actually in the schools every day. Our PSP community, our educators, and our students deserve so much better than this half-hearted plan. We will never stop fighting for our schools, and I'd urge you to join us.
Thank you. Next, we have Stella Eagle.
My name's Stella Eagle. I'm a 7th grader at Driscoll, and I'm here to share my concern about middle school guidance counselor position being cut. Earlier this school year, I had a scary incident happen between me and another student. Once I told my parents, they immediately reached out to Miss Levine, and she met with me and started helping me feel better at school. She gave me scheduled breaks at her office when school felt hard. Miss Levine also set up many bucket fillers or activities to improve my day, such as working in a 1st grade classroom. This gave me something to look forward to every week. Not only has Miss Levine given me support and comfort throughout the year, she has also given me resources to help with managing my anxiety. She would talk with my parents about ways to help me at school and gave me tools to help me manage my stress during school. Knowing that I have a grown-up in the school that understands me makes me feel safe and supported in this community and has helped me through a really difficult time. I am not the only person she has helped. One of my friends told me that she was having trouble in a class, and Miss Levine scheduled meeting times for them to work together, to study, to catch up, and to organize her work. I'm pretty sure you could ask anyone in the middle school, and they would all have a story about how Miss Levine has been helpful to them. She is also in charge of multiple clubs, including GSA. For the 6th graders, she leads one of the advisory classes. She also helps with 8th graders prepare for high school. If the middle school doesn't have a dedicated guidance counselor, I'm worried students won't have the same kind of access to support that they need, especially during times when they most need it. Our community needs more people like Miss Levine, not less. And I hope the school committee reconsiders this decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is Superintendent Wong and the budget update.
So Betsy is going to run the slides for me. So I hope you'll bear with me. There's a lot of slides here. And so the first I want to just to show the agenda slide. Thank you. And also before starting, just to acknowledge the work of the senior leadership team. We have our Deputy Superintendent for Administration and Finance here, Susan Gibbons. Our Deputy Superintendent for the Office of Student Services, Dr. Karen Schmuckler, who's here. And our Deputy Superintendent for the Office of Teaching and Learning, Robin Benoit. Also had a lot of inputs from all of our principals, our 10 principals across the district, and also input from senior level staff and other staff members that work in the offices here and across our other schools. So this is the agenda. I do want to give a historical context before talking about our budget as we present it, and then the budget development, the thought that we put into it, an introduction to the budget book, which you are now just receiving hard copies of, but I know it was just posted recently on the website. Just to review the budget calendar, the guidelines, looking at our enrollment projections, which are a really important consideration. We've been at a decline over time, so level or decline, and so much of the work for the recommended budget reflects an adjustment for that enrollment. Staffing changes, expense highlights, and then also concluding with the funding challenge that we face as we move forward. So moving toward just the historical context, the FY26 budget, the year that we're living in now, there were a lot of reductions in staffing, primarily at the district offices, but also 3 custodians across the district. Most of the staffing otherwise was all saved across the district. Some non-staff reductions. Professional development was reduced tremendously from the budget, saving the professional development for the literacy implementation and vision of a learner, but other than that, pretty much everything else was cut. Online tools, professional services, contracts, and supplies. The funding allocation for this year was just under $6 million. Reflected a 4.16% increase over the FY25 budget. Was insufficient to fund the FY26 budget as we are with all current staffing, all current programming, no professional development, except for the literacy implementation and vision of a learner. It reflects all the reductions that already happened. It was still insufficient to support the current year budget. So the school department made the decision to use $1.943 million out of the circuit breaker reserve. And that reflects a structural deficit for the current year. So, and that reflected a 1.36% increase over FY25. So for a net funding to support the FY26 budget, the increase over FY25 was altogether 5.52%. But that 1.943 comes out of reserve funds, and they were reserve funds that were intended to pay for tuition for next year. Right, so this is to underscore the gravity of the structural deficit that we have in the moment. So when I arrived in July, there was already discussion about the creation of the FY27 budget. So all the way from July to now, we've been working on it. And we've been working with our town partners as well. But if you go to the next slide, there's more to the context I want to describe. So in the FY26 budget, the Executive Director of Educational Equity, the Associate Director of Educational Equity, the entire Office for Educational Equity was eliminated. We had 2 senior directors for the Office of Teaching and Learning. Teaching and learning, the most important thing happening in the district is what is happening in the classroom. There were 2 senior directors for the Office of Teaching and Learning, and one of them was eliminated. So we are left with one. A senior director for the Office of Student Services was also eliminated. There are a number of senior directors for student services across the levels, and also some for more moderate services, but then some also intentionally for clinical or other specialized services. So for the Office of Teaching and Learning, only 2 reduced to 1, and we lost one of our senior directors for our Office of Student Services. We also lost the Director of Data and Information Systems, a very key level position for the analysis of our data to inform our practice in terms of like holding us accountable. Are we doing well? How students are doing? Where we need to target our services. That position was eliminated. The communication specialist was eliminated. And so we're trying to communicate, but you've noticed a difference in terms of what has come out in newsletters, but we're trying to make sure that the information gets out, but we're not doing as good a job in terms of really conveying to the community all the great things that are happening in the district. And so I'm glad for people who watch our meetings or read what we do send out. And we did lose also 3 custodians. These are the staff reductions coming into FY26. Next slide, please. The other thing that happened in the late spring, at the same time the FY26 budget was being developed, you lost a lot of your leadership at the district level. The superintendent of schools, the deputy superintendent for the Office of Student Services, the deputy superintendent for the Office of Teaching and Learning, and of the senior directors that were left, that person also left. So the senior director of the Office of Teaching and Learning. That meant all 4 of these positions were replaced by interims, myself included, and the other deputies. And so for people that don't know this, in the at the senior leadership team level, there is the superintendent and 3 deputies. So that meant 3 of the 4 positions were all interim coming into the start of the FY this year, and also losing, compounding the loss of the deputy superintendent of Office and Teaching and Learning, this one of the remaining senior directors. So this is the context in which this new team arrived. Next slide, please. And then continued challenges to the district. In the departure of the former senior leadership team, there were aspersions cast on financial accounting, the way accounting was being managed. When you make the headlines for that, you come to the attention of multiple entities and you get invited for an audit. So following the CLA report, which was done in the spring and had a list of recommendations for the district to consider, and then the Brookline Audit Committee was then engaged with administration. So on our entry, the new senior leadership team, we were charged with responding to the recommendations of the CLA report and also interacting with the Brookline Audit Committee on the recommendations of the CLA report. That ended up realizing into a memorandum of understanding executed by myself and the town administrator to address and identify specific points in the CLA report that we were committed to addressing. So the MOU said that we would commit to quarterly reports, that we would commit to reviewing our HR operations, would commit to a whole bunch of different things of committing and reporting. And so that was the MOU, and that actually was executed in September. So it took the entire summer to negotiate. Also at the same time, because everyone understands that coming into FY26, we have a significant structural deficit, that there was possibly, likely, a need for a override question to be considered for the town to raise revenue, to be able to address that deficit and where we are in our budgets. So the Expenditures and Review Study Committee was formed, a representative group that was appointed by the chair of the select board. And so this study committee was charged to review what had happened, records, audits, reports, and determine whether they would make a recommendation to the chair of the select board and to the select board in its entirety, whether there should be an override question. And then I think between the select board and the town administrator, they would determine if there was to be an override. The second question is the size of that override. So both questions are critical to us in the school department, not just the school department, but all town departments. The Expenditures and Review Study Committee, to their charge, have asked us a lot of questions. And so actually too many questions for us to be able to respond in the way that we received them. We did respond to a lot of questions in the beginning, but understand that we were a new senior leadership team and we were short-staffed and we were new. And so our focus was to make sure that we could support our principals, support our teachers in schools, and as things were happening, that we could support crisis events. And there have been a number of them in this period. And to be able to be there and to make sure that schools were running smoothly, students' needs were being met, as long as staff needs. So I thank the members of the school committee, which really took the responsibility of representing the school department in the various subcommittees. So the Expenditures and Review Study Committee, at some point, they turned into 3 subcommittees, and the members of our board began to take responsibility for representing and sort of mediating what information that was needed for that study committee. The study committee is outlined their report, and they are drafting the parts of that report. And ultimately, I believe at the end of February, there will be a report completed with a recommendation.
Early March.
Okay, so early March with a recommendation. So they're working on it based on the information we've been able to provide through the representation of our board and also by our own attendance at some of the meetings. They will present to the select board a recommendation, and so that's a really important report and the outcome of that. And so through that work, they have sought assurances from us that we were mindful of managing our expenses, how we spend, how we budget, and that we were mindful of making sure that everything that we present and propose is something that we feel justified in proposing and funding. And so we did, so I'll talk more about what is reflected in the guidelines to reflect that our commitment to the Expenditures and Review Study Committee, which again is a representative body of the town, to support, hopefully, their recommendation for an override, and also of the magnitude that we hope will support our recommendation as well. At the same time, while we are new and learning the district, building the budget, and working with these town committees, we were invited to an audit, or DESE said they would commit an audit of our IDEA grant. Every time you are subjected to an audit, there is a massive document production, and you have to give them access to your files. And it's all good, they need to do that, but it takes away our capacity, takes away our time to be able to do all the other things to support the functionality of the district, again, to benefit our students, support our staff, and support our building leadership. So we also were committed and invited to participate in an MTRS audit. And so our DESI audit came back incredibly clean. I'm used to audits coming back with, okay, you're good, but you have these corrective actions. It came with 0 corrective actions. That was huge for us because in the aspersions in the spring, captured by the CLA report, there were allegations that we hadn't managed the IDEA grant well. And so that report came back absolutely clean, no corrective actions. Our MTRS audit has also come back clean, right? So we were invited to participate in September. We've only received the conclusion of that report last month. So in all this time, we've been waiting and had uploaded our documents. The town audit is nearing its completion, and so it's not just us. We participated in that, but it's also town-centered and other departments. We're waiting for the conclusion of that audit, but that also required a lot of document production, a lot of meetings with the auditors. DESI chose us to participate in a curriculum review audit. Not every district gets chosen. This is not one of those mandated regular reviews that you get. This one is they spot check different districts to do it, and we got chosen. I did ask if we could wait a year and do it next year, but no. So they will be coming in March, and there has been a tremendous document production for the curriculum review audit. All our curriculum materials, but they're also looking at finances. They're also looking at our accounting systems. There will be, oh my gosh, what do you call them? Like focus group meetings. So there'll be focus group meetings involving faculty, involving school committee, administration, community. So it's a big audit that we'll be committing to in March. They also will be coming into all the schools, and they will be observing classes, and they will be writing reports on what they see when they come to all the classes. They're not going to see every single class, but they are committed to come to every single school and see some classes. So we are preparing staff to welcome them into our classes come March. We have been recently invited to participate, last month, in a Title II, III, and IV audit. So again, document productions. And so this is to help, I think, for people to appreciate that the new senior leadership team is committed to represent the district in the best of circumstances and in the best light. But also we have, we're under tremendous, we're under tremendous need for transparency. Through the audits, everything is being provided. And so we're charged to make sure that everything that we're doing is matches our budget guidelines, but also best practices. And yes, that we are being fiscally responsible. The term efficiencies is meant that we are finding ways to do things that is not a detriment to service, okay? And that's where we are at this level. The projected budget at this point does reflect our analysis of everything that we're doing. And yes, there are reductions that are going to be part of that projected budget. At the same time, we are presenting a budget that maintains level service and also needs for sustaining and maintaining our programs, but that means an investment in training and professional development moving forward. So these are continued challenges to the district, some historical context, and I want to say too, at this point too, our new senior, no, it's okay, you were perfect. Our new senior leadership team, I feel very good about the team. We're fortunate that that we have so many years of experience. It's a new team, but we have several decades of experience in leadership in different school systems, some in this school district. And so coming together, we've come together quickly and collaboratively. We're able to be open with each other, challenge each other. We don't always agree at different points, but we have come together on this budget that we are presenting for you. The other district transitions and initiatives, if we have new school committee members, and what that means is that as we proceed, we can't make assumptions about what any member has familiarity with. So that's another part where we're having to think about how we communicate, and if we're doing it in a way, in a fashion that addresses the needs of new committee members to come to an understanding about everything, because in the end, we want to be able to come together and advocate together. We want to be unified in the presentation of what we need in our budget and support moving forward. We have 3 newly permanent principals, 1 brand new to the district, 2 who are formerly interims, but new in their permanent roles, and they're not, so 1 is in the school that they were in before, but 1's in a school that they weren't in before. So there's been also a need to support new principal leadership. And so I say after classroom teachers, the most important educator is the building principal. They're the ones that are working on the front line, meeting with our students, our staff, but also our families. They're the ones that are most directly interacting and assuring that what we are hoping is happening in every classroom is, and they're the ones to assure that you're getting the resources that you need. The other transition initiatives were new transportation routes, because we reduced the bus between last year and this year, and I think it was a little rough in the beginning, but that also took time out to work with solutions, and I think it took several months. Also keep in mind that we had a new facilities director, and so transportation was also new to that person. So many people learning, and I think, I hope, I do believe the feedback was positive that we were able to figure out the transportation in the end. Really importantly, we've had the implementation of a new literacy and curriculum across our K-5 with a mind to expanding to grades 6 through 8, and MTSS building that curriculum as part of that implementation of the literacy program. We're also expanding the work of the vision of a learner that actually is required by the NEASC process that the high school was engaged in for its accreditation, the decennial process for accreditation that it underwent. The vision of a learner for the high school, we've determined, and I think you all agree, that it's going to become part of a K-12 or pre-K-12 vision of a learner and expanding that. So those are new initiatives. We also are engaged in 6 contract negotiations. So we're engaged in them, we're in process. And I think the progress on that is somewhat, I appreciate our unions in engaging that and being available. But we're also, I think they appreciate that our capacity has been impacted through our changes and the demands of building this budget. But we've also had new turnover at the district level that we did not anticipate. So we've had a departure of 2 key positions in the district offices, our director of finance and our HR director. So additional new turnover at the district level. We've determined not to fill those roles, right? So part of the work we did for preparing this budget was to reorganize and rethink the functions. So we are not refilling the position, but it means an additional demand on those of us that are at the district level. So the historical context of what happened in the spring, the impact on your leadership, the change in leadership, the reductions and adjusting to the reductions, and answering a lot of questions that got generated by what happened last spring, and trying to negotiate, build the budget, and here we are. So next slide. FY27 budget development. So hope you appreciate that the context is important as we come into this and how we approach the budget development. And if you could go to the next slide. The budget book has been uploaded to the website. It's available to anyone, so anyone can see it. Much more detail than you're going to hear in this presentation. I'm going to sort of hit the highlights, but also my goal is for one to appreciate the importance of the projected budget and the importance of supporting the budget as we proposed. So next slide. This is the budget calendar. It's a little hard to read, but it just tells you that we've been committed to this timeline. So the beginning is creating our budget priorities, the guidelines, and then working with our principals and other budget preparers across the district. There are over 60 budget preparers in the district, department coordinators, different leaders all the way through with our principals, and of course the senior leadership team pulling that all together. And so where we're at is we are at February 5th today, where we're presenting the proposed budget, and then the rest of the calendar is deliberation. Next week, Thursday, is an important budget hearing where there's more of a dialogue that can happen. The school committee is invited to send their questions. I believe we're sending them to Z. Z is going to collate your questions for us. So you're encouraged to create your questions, and then also the public is to create their questions, and that they can come to the public hearing. The school committee must vote the budget in time to submit it to the town. I believe it says February. I can't read it. Yeah, thank you. The deadline is because of when the town meeting occurs. And so there's a deadline for when you have to submit your budgets, and then they build the warrants from there. So this isn't in our control. It's dictated by these processes that are part of.
It's March.
Is it March?
Reading the public
Okay.
hearing, the actual,
We have to submit it to the town, but then
some of the hearings in February, and the budget possible vote will be in mid-March.
okay, I thought it was earlier. Susan?
Donna has it correct.
Yeah. Susan?
It's hard to read, maybe up and over there, but
She can't hear from me. Well, in any case, we have a budget hearing next week, and I thought committee had to vote.
Donna read the date.
We have to vote by February 15th. And
That's
so
what I thought.
the public hearing and the vote will be on the same night, but that's not the final vote. That's basically the vote to transmit this budget.
So at
As
least
it
to get
is.
one budget, and there may be revisions along the way. Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Thank you. If you could go to the next slide. So these are the budget guidelines that were voted by the school committee. The school committee votes the guidelines and they send them to me. And so these are the standards that we adhere to around class sizes, and also to our priorities identified that related to the strategic plan. And also a commitment, and this was partly in collaboration with our expenditures and revenue study committee, that we were doing what they needed to assure that they were going to have enough to be able to make a conclusion about their recommendation. So part of creating the budget was to evaluate current operations and programs for possible efficiencies and revenue generation. So that's under 6 up there. That's a little hard to read. So evaluate current operations and programs, create budgets for possible override planning scenarios that will identify financial operational efficiencies, revenue generation, the ongoing K-8 literacy implementation and district-wide MTSS development, FY26 reductions to restore, program modifications to assure educational equity for all students, including but not limited to social, emotional, and academic learning. And then the final part is to outline consequences of a failed or override, assuming there is an override question. And so just to let you know that that we will provide more clarity and time for the February 12th meeting. The next slide is looking at our enrollment projection. Looks like part of it is cut off there. Thank you. So the similar enrollment patterns as FY26, we've had an overall overall net decline. And so it's not like precipitous, but it is an overall decline that's been happening. And so our projection for FY27 is we're projecting 6,989, so a slight decline. But it's been a decline from FY25 on and is comparable to what we had in FY22. The projection is not for a big increase. The projection is actually more of the same for the next couple of years. So because the enrollment has been as such, we did look at our programs with an eye to that. So preparation for FY27. This is over several slides, preparation for FY27. And this one highlights the things that we looked at for efficiencies, reorganization, and revenue, possible revenue. I again want to underscore that efficiencies are for things that are looking at our enrollment, adjusting for our enrollment, which means looking at caseloads, and the recommended budget, it is a budget for a level service and also maintaining some growth. Financial operational efficiencies and maintaining level service. We have created a plan to restructure the district offices. So we're not rehiring a finance director, and we've reduced an additional position in our HR department. We are seeking to restore our data director. We're not going to restore the communications. We're not restoring the other senior director that was eliminated. We're not restoring the OEE. So there are many things we're not seeking to restore. We are seeking to restore the senior data director as a high priority. For us, for a district this large and this complex, we need a senior level person that helps us look at our data to inform our practice. And I know that teachers and principals are looking at data and they need additional support to be able to make best use of that data to, again, inform their practice for the benefit of our students. We did offer an early retirement incentive. We offered teachers that were thinking about retirement $20,000 that would be payable to them upon their retirement at the end of the year. And so we have about 10 to 12 people that have indicated and accepted that incentive. And I say 10 to 12 people because the retirement, it comes into effect if people actually are able to go ahead and enact their retirement. Some people are still working with MTRS to assess to make sure their information is correct and is something that they want to do. So we've incorporated the savings for some of that, not all of them. So conservatively, like maybe half of the number into our FY27 projection. We looked at each of our schools, our K-8 schools, with our principals, and we looked at the enrollment projections section by section. And with our principals, we determined that in some cases we needed an additional section. Some cases we needed it was to go down. Now, when we went down a section, it was because if we carried the same number of students forward to that next grade level, we might have been looking at section size of 15, 16, or even fewer. That's when we reduced the section. This was not about going from 20 to 23, right? It was about we're not running all the sections that we have because we're talking about sections of 15 and 16. Sometimes we went up, sometimes we went down. The guidance enrollment-based adjustment, we looked at the average across all our K-8 schools. So the adjustment on a guidance counselor is based on that. And so every single staff reduction was a process of multiple people being engaged in that conversation and multiple conversations. This is something that we did over time. Special education caseload also across all levels, all schools. This was carefully done in each circumstance. These were not quick calculations. These were with building principals, with our special ed directors, school by school, program by program. Administrative support adjustment, also looking across everything. There are no custodial reductions. I just want to remind you there were 3 reductions in that department for the current year. Computer leases right sizing, our enrollment has gone down, our teachers have gone down. So part of this was working with IT to change their assumptions for renewal, license renewal, equipment. We also determined that for K and 1, that we would go to shared Chromebooks, not one-on-one. So we still have Chromebooks for classes, so that roll from class to class, but we moved away from the one-to-one. So these are some of the efficiencies that we feel don't undermine delivery of service, but so this is what we mean by efficiencies. Print materials adjustment, we did look at all our curriculum coordinator budgets and we made adjustments there. Revenue generation. So as you know, this also was a long process of development. We identified just three of our specialized programs, identified 3 to start, and did a lot of work in terms of building that tuition. The tuition was approved by the subcommittee and then by the finance subcommittee and then by this committee. We are not projecting revenue for that until FY28. It's a big shift for us to accept students through a tuition-in-like program like this. So we want to make sure we're doing it in a measured way. And so we want to put pressure on our staff that we're expecting that tuition to balance the budget next year. So we're projecting it for FY28. And so, but this is something that we are committed to doing and committed to doing it right and thoughtfully. BEEP tuition went up, and that's the revenue generation for BEEP. Material fee, the school committee voted a 3% increase in the material fee, and for staff that bring their children, and it's not just school staff, but all town staff, and that is the revenue generated. That's the increase, yes. Facility rental costs is something is a TBD. So I think that is something that we are looking to increase expenses. Just a heads up, we'd like to maybe engage staffing for after-school access, so that will fold into what we might consider for rental use increase. Next slide, please. When I started, I was told that we absolutely could not add anything to the budget unless I took something away. And so I did say that there were so many reductions that happened that I thought it was only fair to look at the impact and make a recommendation for some restoration. So as I said, the Director of Data and Information Systems, many things were cut out of the district offices. I cannot say, moving forward with the FY27 budget as recommended, that the district offices are fully resourced. Our focus and our prioritization was as much as possible to support direct service to students, direct service to schools, and to our building leadership. But this is a position that the SLT team unanimously supports as a priority restoration. And it will serve OAS, OSS, and OTL. But it's intentional to hold us accountable for our performance in our support of student learning. The OTL copy releases, they were unintentionally omitted from FY26. It's not an expense that's negotiable. We have to have them. So we had to restore that in the budget. They were always in the budget in FY25. They were left out of the FY26 budget, so they're coming back in. Professional curriculum and development was cut in FY26, and that has been really hard for our teachers in our schools. And it's not just about sustaining. I mean, teachers are better teachers if you're also learning. So it's also support the learning of our teachers, but it's also to support new curriculum and new technologies. And so we are asking to restore that kind of training that was cut in FY26. Computer leases were a cost savings for FY26 and they were deferred. So we put off, I believe, replacement cycles. And so they have to be put in for FY27. Transportation has been underfunded. And so we're trying to write the funding for transportation in the FY27 budget. Stipends were also underfunded in FY26, so we're trying to right fund them for FY27. Thank you. The next thing, this is also about restoration and growth, program maintenance and growth. We are sustaining the K-8 math curriculum renewal. That is the licensure renewal. It expires this year. We have to renew the license. That is our curriculum. The Google Workspace is also a necessary relicensure. We want to launch a science and technology curriculum review. It hasn't been done in a long time. When I say budget neutral, it's not without a cost, but we can build it within the budgets that we have and other grant funding or remainder revolving accounts that we have. Vision of a Learner is we're continuing that. That's also budget neutral for the same reason. Seal Up by Literacy is also budget neutral. We're finding capacity within our staffing to be able to take responsibility for that, and that it will be a new program. Seal Up by Literacy is a certification program that recognizes students that reach a certain level of mastery in a language other than their native or their home language. So if English is your primary language, it would be the mastery of French or Spanish or another language. If English is not your first language, it's the mastery of English. So it's a biliteracy certification program promulgated by DESE in the name of equitable acknowledgement of mastery of learning another language. We have approval of new career and technology education courses at the high school. And so this fosters a diversification of programming for our students that might take that path ultimately. So meeting needs of a broader group of students. Chemical hygiene safety plan development, also budget neutral to enhance our safety in our lab sciences at the high school, and I believe in our middle schools. The BHS curriculum articulation work is again part of the NEASC work. NEASC gave us a recent update and cited that this was an area of continuing work, and along with the vision of a learner. And this is budget neutral because we had set aside funds for this, and that's in a revolving account. World language curriculum work, also budget neutral, and then continuing ELA curriculum development, again, monies are being held in a revolving account that we can carry forward. So you can see that most of the program maintenance and growth that we're identifying is budget neutral, assuming that the budget that we're asking for is supported as proposed. And then other adjustments, new liabilities. We are anticipating the loss of Title II, III, and IV to the amount of almost $300,000. That has been important professional development money for us, other curriculum supports, and so we're not assuming everything that was covered by 2, 3, and 4. We went through and we tried to adopt things that we thought were most critical and have folded that into the budget. FF&E was always carried on the town side of the ledger, and so they have asked that we put it on our side of the ledger. And so it wasn't funded. So we are putting it on our side of the ledger and funding. So these are new liabilities that we're recording. These are the net staff reductions. It's a net reduction of 19.7 across all schools. Preschool, our K-8s, our high school, and reflects also additional changes in our district offices. They're 1 or 2 or fractional. There is no building that sustains the bulk of anything. We have done our best to distribute the reductions across as many sectors as possible to minimize the impact. We looked, and it's largely right sizing for enrollment over time. Right, so we have additional reductions in the district offices. And again, custodial, I want to remind everyone that we did reductions coming into this year. And so staff changes, if you go to the budget book that's online, you will see the detail. All right, so they're in the budget books. Staffing changes by office. Superintendent and school committee, we actually don't have, it's just me and the secretary. So, and so the other reductions are in admin, finance, student services, and then the Office of Teaching and Learning. So that has everything, the elementary sections, the ETS, there's a librarian. And then this is, this reflects in some way the magnitude of work that's been done. Again, we are a new leadership team, and the initial preliminary budget projection was 9% over the current year. It reflected all positions as they are. It also did restore professional development because that has been a priority for us, and it restored the data position. Over this period of time, we've again looked carefully at all our lines across every school, across every department, OTL, OSS, OAF, every single section. We've looked through carefully. And so this reflects where we are today at an 8.1 million increase, but it's a tremendous change from where we started in November. And it reflects a lot of inputs from a large body of people. And we're at a 5.68%. So I feel that the budget we've presented, or we are presenting, is a solid body of work and represents fully what we feel is needed to fund our programs in the way that we want, to support the excellence in our programs, to support this, to support what our students need, what our staff need, to be able to deliver that service. And so in the next slide, it's also to give you some context. Historically, that has been our town revenue allocation. All right, so keep in mind, we're saying the increase we need is 8.1 million. That has been the historical allocation. If you go to the next slide, this is an illustration of the impact of the structural funding deficit over time. All right, so bear with me. If you look at FY23 and you just go down vertically, if you go down vertically, what was received in circuit breaker in that year is the bottom number, 3280301. That is what was received in FY23. Historically, the district takes all the money they receive in one fiscal year and they charge it against the tuition for the next school year. So that's what that arrow indicates. All the money received in FY23 in circuit breaker got charged against the tuition in FY24. The bottom line in FY24, 3606,449 is all the money received that year in circuit breaker reimbursement. I'm sorry. Circuit breaker reimbursement is the money we get for every student. If they, every student, we can determine for some of our student with higher needs, the amount of money it costs to serve that student. So it might be a para in a specialized program, or it might be an out-of-district tuition. When we take that cost and we take the amount over a threshold determined by the state, that money above the threshold is subject to a reimbursement. Statutorily, the state can reimburse up to 75%. Historically, sometimes it's 75%, sometimes it's less. So the threshold is around 50,000. So the money we spend above 50,000 is eligible for possible reimbursement at most at 75%. So that's what that monies reflect. It's a sizable amount of money which supports, there's a sizable amount of money being invested to support our students with intensive needs. So if you note the total tuition line in the bright blue, that is the total tuition line as it progresses across the fiscal years. All right, so then we get to FY25, and you see the money that was received in FY25, and you see that it was entirely allocated for this year, FY26. The town allocated almost 6 million to the district. It was not enough to fund the budget for this year. So the district, the department committed to drawing $1.943 million $64 from the money being received this year. Right? Historically, the money received in a given year is charged to the next year. But we committed to take 1.9 out of this year's, which means there's less money available for the next year. Where does this structural funding deficit come from? It's been rolling forward for the past few years. There are things in the budget that haven't been funded in the budget. We've been using one-time revenues to cover that. Sometimes we make a budget for salaries and maybe there's some breakage. So there's a little bit about that, all right? But it's one-time revenues. We've been doing that. What the proposed budget this year, I think it's in the next slide. Not in the next, can we jump to the next slide and then back to this one? Nope, sorry, just go back. I thought I had put a slide in there, but I didn't. All right, let's just go back to here. All right. If 8.1 million, almost 2 million of it reflects the structural deficit. All right, so if you take 8.1 million and you remove the structural deficit, it's 6.1 million. Historically, the town has been able to give us about that amount. Historically, that has been like we're pretty level to what we have been over the years. If we are fully funded, and I'm asking and hoping that we can be fully funded for the proposed budget, it will fund the structural deficit on top of what we're saying we need for the budget moving forward. Once the structural deficit is solved in the out years, we will go back to more of that 4.4, 4.5%, hopefully, right, in growth, yes, which is more sustainable for the town as a whole. So the next slide is just our big budgets over time. So it doesn't look, okay, so my fault, it doesn't have the percent increases over time, but you can see where we are. Like if you look down at FY 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, and then you can see where our net differential is at 8.1. So if I thought to do an additional slide, I would just show what our percentages are. And actually our percentages are revealed in a prior, I believe in the 122 chart, it has the percentages in there. And so if I had my hands on it, but I don't have my hands on it, it's okay. So if you look at it, the budget increases were more like 4.34, 4.4, and then it looks like we're going to 5.63 for this one. But again, it's including the structural deficit. If it's fully funded, it will go back to the 4.4 numbers. And then the last slide. I don't know what our funding shortfall is. At our last meeting, the town administrator was comfortable with me saying that there would be a $2 million allocation, but they're not as comfortable at this point. And I want to say that everyone is working really hard, and so the town administrator and their staff is working really hard at figuring out what's available, and it's complex. And so there will be an allocation, but I just don't know what the size is. And so once we know the size, then we will know what our funding gap is. So what this budget proposes is an 8.1 increase. I don't know what the allocation will be. And then once we know what the allocation is and we know what the funding gap is, then we can be more clear about what the impact is about not having a funded budget. Do you have anything to add, Susan? Okay. So we invite, I don't know if you have immediate questions for clarity, but otherwise we invite the members to submit questions.
Just had a, yeah.
Yes.
Jesse, go ahead, and then
Yeah,
we'll
a
go
question.
around after you, we'll go around the room.
Yeah, a question and a comment. On the page 35, the last big picture, I don't, I mean, again, I scanned it quickly. I didn't see professional development anywhere. There's like a blank line, maybe it didn't print or something like that. I don't know. That's on page 35.
Okay.
Maybe it got missed. It was, I thought maybe it's that blank line, but it's not there.
Oh, because this is Office of Student
Only
Services.
OSS, okay, got it,
Yeah,
got it,
so
got it.
it would be in a different
It'll be the other one,
place.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, and thank you.
okay.
And the other thing I wanted to mention, just I guess for the public, the additional town allocation is funded through a prior override. That's not money that the town got revenue from some other source and then was able to allocate it to a portion of that money that it had from some magic account and give it to the schools. That 6 to 7 million each year, in my understanding, is monies that were raised through the 3 years ago override, which begins to make you think about, well, without an override, that the zeros that Bella was showing across the bottom for future allocations to close the gap would be large. So just as a clarity point is to describe where that revenue came from, that additional revenue.
Thank you, Jesse. Anybody else? It's quiet in the room. Okay, go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, just maybe a clarifying question, more a question to make sure I heard you correctly and understood what you said. So when you talked about, so this request represents a 5.68% increase over fiscal year 26. And then you also said, I believe that includes the 1.94 million that's needed to once and for all kind of close the structural deficit.
I think is it 1.94? Yes.
Yeah,
it
so
does.
that's like 1.3% roughly of our budget, doing a back of
So if you took,
back of the envelope,
if you
right?
took that out,
Yeah.
you'd be looking at a 4.34? Yeah, so.
Which is actually in line with sort of the town allocation increases that we've been getting the last couple of years.
Yeah,
right?
so kudos to the finance team, being able to come to that clarity.
Yeah.
But if it were to be fully funded, then we would move forward with lower projections.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I'd heard you correctly. Yeah.
Thanks. Mariah?
Thank you. Thank you to you, Bella, for presenting tonight, and to Susan and to the principals and Robin and Karen for putting all of this together. I know how challenging it is and how complex and what you've worked on. So I appreciate that. I wonder, Bella, if you could forecast for us how you expect the process to go from here. And I'll say just two questions. One is, do you expect this, is there going to be conversation that the school committee will engage in on the choices and the cuts that were made? Or how are you expecting us to discuss or talk about those? And then just more broadly, if you could provide a timeline of, for example, when will you be presenting the no override scenario? Yes, that would be, I guess, my next question.
So we wanted to make sure you had it before the 2/12 meeting. And so we have been actually talking about how to approach a non-override budget scenario. And so talking about it with the principals and other directors. So for everyone, our budget are expenses, and they are salaries. The budget is essentially expenses and salaries. There are not enough expenses for us to cut to be able to close that gap. What are the expenses? And there are some expenses we can't touch. So expenses we can't touch the tuition. We can't touch transportation. We can't cut food service. There's just we're limited by what we can reduce on the expense side. So unfortunately, with a gap that big, we'll do what we can on expenses, but it largely comes out of the salary side. So it's possible we can present some scenarios where we can just take, okay, this is what we can do. Now we have the salaries. We can take the salary line, we can divide it by a salary, and then you get your total FTEs. That's just one look.
You're talking about to cover the whole 8.1 million, Bella, yes?
Well, there might be some expenses we can do, but what I'm making clear is that essentially it will end up being
Yes.
massive staff reductions because you can't make up that gap. And also, I'm assuming there will be a town allocation. So town administration knows that we very much have wanted that number because it determines the scope of the work that we have to do next. So I'm hopeful that we will have that in time for us to give you better clarity before the next meeting, right? So one approach is the minimal that we can do out of expenses, the rest of it is salary. We can divide it by a number and you get an FTE count. And then another is, okay, we've identified these programmatic reductions that reflects this amount of FTEs and this amount of money. And then after that, there is a smaller remainder where we say this is what the cuts are. We may propose, okay, this amount distributed to the high school, this amount distributed to the K-8s. I have no idea what you do with BEEP. I don't know how you reduce at BEEP.
Can you just clarify, Bella, did you say when you were thinking that like this conversation will happen, or you're saying it'll really depend because the scope of what you need to do will really depend on when the town provides us with a more accurate allocation?
So if we say, oh, it's an 8 million gap and this is what it looks like, or maybe it's 7, or maybe it's 6, it's just really confusing. So
Yeah.
we're just hoping to have some clarity to know what it is we're dealing with.
Okay.
So I don't think we would say it's this. I think we would probably show what are possibilities of ways to approach it. And there'll be no great options.
Right. I mean, at
Yeah.
8.1 million, assuming sort of an average staff assumption, it's almost 100 people. It's devastating to the district. So there are no great options. And as you say, hopefully the number will be much smaller.
And I do underscore that I feel like we've done our due diligence. We've looked hard at the budget and we fully support what's on the table.
Meaning you're responding to both what you've retained and what you've chosen to remove.
Yes.
Thank you.
But also realizing that we are honestly, with the town allocation being possibly where it's at, there was no way we were going to be able to present a budget without a funding gap. But I'm also saying that it's a solid budget as proposed, as analyzed. And so I'm hoping for a full funding of it.
Okay, anyone else? Questions, initial questions? Just speak up, Bob.
Thank you, Val. So I just want to say, Madam Superintendent, that with the constraints that you described, changes in staffing, the limitations in staffing, the audits that were expected from you, your facility with this budget and the challenges that we face are just impressive, and I want to thank you.
You know, I'm gonna say it's a team. Yeah, everyone's worked really hard on it. Thank you.
Val, my hand is up. It's Carolyn.
Go ahead, Carolyn.
Thanks. Thank you to everybody for putting this together, and for that very detailed explanation, Bella. So I just want to clarify, so I know for our role in the next couple of weeks, and thank you for inviting us to forward questions. So I just want to, like, I was jotting down a few questions, just sort of clarification things. So that's the kind of thing, just like, could we get a little more detail here, a little clarification there? Is that the nature? And you want us to email Z, do you want to give us a deadline?
A deadline, that's a good idea. What's a deadline that works for
Do you want to give us a limit?
Is it,
No more than 5.
is it Monday?
What,
I
a
think-
deadline for what?
They want it-
Asking questions in advance
Well, if
of
they want the
Thursday?
answers
For
by
submitting
Thursday.
questions to Z.
Yeah, so questions, of course, will come up
Sure.
as we go along, but it would be ideal if by the end of the day on Monday, if you have some pressing questions, if you could get those to Z so we can lump them.
No
So when
problem.
we're doing presentations, we can kind of lump,
Sure.
you know,
And I don't have anything scary or challenging. I just want to, it's
Yeah.
helpful to know so the process can be
That would-
supportive of your work. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Carolyn?
No, thank you.
Okay, Mariah.
Thanks. I just want to make sure this is a little bit like more for the public. So the budget book is posted on the website. Bella, will you also, or Kathleen on your behalf, be sending a link out to it to the community so that they can see it? Just to make sure people can find it, because
did.
sometimes the website can be a bit,
We can send it to, so we can send it tomorrow.
yeah, not tonight, of course. Yeah, like just if you, yeah, that would be helpful, maybe with a short summary of some of the remarks you gave tonight so that people are aware of the budget coming out and some of the highlights. And then in terms of the public, coming next Thursday is the public hearing, and so they can sign up in advance by emailing school_committee@psbma.org the normal way.
Yes, Susan's nodding yes.
Okay. And of course, they can also just send in written comment to that same email address. They don't need to come in person. They can just send that comment and it goes straight to the school committee members and then you receive it as well. I just wanted to say that out loud so that everyone knows what they can do. That's all. Thank you.
Anyone else in the room?
Yeah, it's
If so,
Suzanne.
Okay, go ahead, Suzanne.
So this is your proposed budget with the gap. And we don't know what the allocation is going to be from the town. I mean, how much that will be to cover that gap. But I'm also wondering about the override. Will we end up having 2 budgets? Like if there's an override, if the override passes, what that budget might be? Or do we just, how do we reconcile that? How do we figure that out?
Isn't this the budget if the override passes?
It is. This is
Yeah.
the budget if it passes, Suzanne.
Okay, So do we have to think about if it doesn't pass?
That's what I was just asking about, and Bella was saying they would, they would talk through it, but they need to know what the allocation is to know
Okay,
what the gap is.
okay.
I have to remind everyone that even if an override question is determined, the amount is the second question. So I'm advocating for full funding of the proposed budget.
Thank you. Anyone else? If so, just speak up. Okay, I'm sure there'll be lots of questions forthcoming. Thank you for this detailed presentation to you and Susan and Karen and Robin and the whole team, the principals and the whole team. Next on our agenda, item 6A is the Brookline High School course catalog changes for 26 to 27, review, discussion, possible vote. 6AI, algorithms and data structures, and 6A, sub 2I, systems programming, computer science, both in the computer science. Suzanne, do you want to lead us through this?
Sure. So the curriculum subcommittee met last week, and Britt Stevens presented these two courses. I will say up front that they are budget neutral. They're both, computers are both half-year courses. So they have a teacher already who is teaching a full-year course, and he would then drop one of those courses, and they would put these two courses in as half-years. So that's how it's budget neutral. It's part of their, it's a little bit part of their pathways around computers and coursework that way. The first course, you can read it, it's there, and the notion is it really presents analytical thinking. She mentioned Java as a language, computer language. And the second course is systems programming, and it's understanding systems, a level of understanding. So she thinks that there is quite a bit of interest in this, and we voted unanimously to bring it to the full committee for approval of these two
Val?
courses.
Val?
Do you have a question for Suzanne?
Oh, no, I have a motion on this and a statement.
Hold the phone, Bob. Does anybody have any questions for Suzanne? Bob, go ahead, but if it's what we discussed, it's gonna be out of order, but go ahead.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead with your motion.
I move that we approve the proposed new courses for inclusion in the BHS course catalog and also require the high school to offer WISP honors in addition to unleveled WISP for 2026, 2027.
Second part of your motion is out of order, was not posted, it's subject to, it would violate the open meeting law. Would you like to present the first part of your motion?
I would like an explanation for why a member of the school committee cannot make a proposal and a motion on the school, high school catalog.
Sure, we have Jen King here to discuss.
What's that?
Jen King is going to discuss, our counsel.
So one moment, I'm just pulling up the agenda once again. So we have an agenda posted, and that includes school committee actions for course catalogs with respect to algorithms and data structures, computer science, and systems programming and computer science. The open meeting law does require 48 hours notice if we are going to add or change things to the agenda. If there is less than 24 hours notice of a matter to be added, especially if it is a motion for something new that is not on the agenda, the Attorney General's office may find that we are out of compliance with the open meeting law and can require that the school committee basically revoke anything that it did with respect to that. So the school committee just needs to be very careful with respect to addressing any unaddressed or unanticipated matters that were not on the agenda, particularly those based on guidance from the AG's office that might cause an interest in the community and might draw people to public comment or to an attention. So you can always remove things from an agenda or like not address those, but when you want to add something during a meeting, the AG's office recommends delaying until the next meeting so it can be properly posted and to avoid an open meeting law complaint.
So I cannot make an amendment to the motion?
My recommendation to comply with the open meeting law is to hold off on that motion and to ask the chair to add that to the agenda for the next meeting. So that way there are no open meeting law complaints against the school committee.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you.
So, right, happy to discuss a new business, Bob. Mariah?
I just want to follow up on this because it's really frustrating to me as a member of the committee that no matter how you feel about WISP, it feels like this has been deferred and deferred and deferred and has been a topic for a year and a half. It's literally, Val, the opposite of new business. It is old business. And it's frustrating that the agenda was set up in a way that it was so tight as to not allow for any sort of amendment even to really the item on the floor. And I just, I would hope that we could even just defer this item to next week, assuming we are meeting next week because we have the hearing, and rewrite this in a way that lets us have this conversation finally.
So there is a conversation, Mariah. Suzanne will probably talk about it during her curriculum update. The chair of the department is out on a medical leave.
No, I understand. I can read my
Okay.
emails. I understand all of that.
Okay, well, I'm saying this for the public because they don't read your emails or mine. So
Well, but this has been going on for at least a year and a half, if not more than that. This has been a long-term conversation, and I just feel like it's been frustrating that it gets deferred and deferred and deferred. Let's just have the conversation already.
So you did read, I'm sure, the email that talks about the process for introducing new courses and bringing them to the school committee. And if you look at it, it starts off right at the top that says that the curriculum coordinator with the work of their department will start to look at what a new course would look like. And they have to do the legwork. And they then present that to their administrators in their schools and to their administrative council, get the green light there. If they get that green light, then they're going to come to curriculum subcommittee and get the green light there. And then we bring that to the full committee. That's in the policy. And we have actually stuck to that process as we're looking at WISP. And I don't know that we've been doing it for a year and a half. Bob just came on in May, so that's not a year. But that is what we're allowing the department to do. And so we have arranged, and Bob knows this, for a meeting with the head of the department, Jen Martin, and with the administration at the high school. They want to meet with Bob. They've included him in their beginning work that they would bring to us. And so I know it's frustrating, but this is a big decision, and we want to give them full opportunity to present what they would like to present. And they also want to hear from the school committee what it is they're looking for. So I think it's only fair that we stick to the process. I know it's frustrating. I hear it a lot. Tonight, we are voting on the two courses that has already gone through this process. So we're going to vote tonight. I will move, because I think, Bob, your motion was not accepted. I will move that we accept these two courses tonight. I look for a second to that and to a vote, because the high school and Hal needs to know this, that these courses are coming through now. And then we will continue the process when we look at a review of existing courses, which is a little unusual because usually school committee members do not ask for a review of an existing course, but that doesn't mean we can't. Okay, so I now have on the floor a motion. I would ask for someone to second that.
Seconded.
Okay, thank you, Jesse.
Jesse seconds.
Al, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
I
Discussion.
just wanted, since we're having discussion, I'll just point out as a matter of fact that this is the same question that I asked approximately 1 year ago when I was on the curriculum subcommittee. And it got delayed and delayed and delayed and never docketed until this day. So it's not a Bob Weintraub issue, it's a longer issue than that.
So noted.
In my personal experience.
Val, can I make a statement?
Of course.
Thank you. So what Suzanne is describing is the normal process for approving courses throughout the school system. What I'm saying is that, and do you mind if I read a brief statement? And
Go
then
ahead.
that'll explain why I'm interested. Okay, so I made a motion that we require the high school to add WISP honors, okay? Last May, the 3 candidates elected to the school committee expressed their opposition to de-leveling at Brookline High School. I was appointed, as you know, to the curriculum subcommittee 9 months ago. Suzanne knows that, she just mentioned it. And I have requested many, many times, beginning in May, that the subcommittee have a discussion on the assessment of WISP, the required unleveled 9th grade social studies course. Other members of the school committee have also expressed a strong interest in assessing the WISP classes as well as other aspects of the curriculum. We have, with all due respect, Suzanne, we have been deliberately denied the opportunity to discuss and assess WISP. It is now the 12th hour, which is the reason for my motion. It's too late for a regular process that Suzanne described to include an honors choice for the students in 2026, 2027. And I'll just say one more thing. I know the motion is controversial in the high school and at the central office, but it is supported by a large segment of our community that I was elected to represent. I do not want to wait another year and a half for 9th grade students to have an honors option in the 9th grade social studies. And I have much more to say, but I'll say it next week when I'm allowed to present my motion. Thank you.
I just have to say, just to jump in, Bob, read your motion, because I'm having trouble with your motion, the wording that you're using. Can you say that again for me?
Sure.
Yeah, I don't understand how we have that kind of authority and power to say what
The
you
school committee has ultimate responsibility over curriculum in the school system.
I understand you're saying.
It does not say, no, let me finish. There is no defined process that you described. There is past practice, there is the way we usually do business, but this is the 12th hour, which is why my frustration has resulted in this motion. The motion says, I move we approve the proposed new courses that you described for inclusion in the Brookline High School course catalog, and I also move that we require the high school to offer WISP honors in addition to WISP unleveled for 2026, 2027.
Yeah, so it's the word require that I'm struggling with.
Yeah, that's our responsibility.
Not necessarily.
school committee.
Our responsibility is to approve curriculum. I'm not sure our responsibility is to require.
Our
a particular-
responsibility is to oversee the curriculum in the public schools of Brookline.
I understand that. That's not the same in my mind as require.
Okay, we disagree.
Okay. And I will say, although you're not going to like any of this, I will say there have been extenuating circumstances. You came in May, we weren't going to take it up in June, nor over the summer, and Robin came to us new in September, and she's our deputy superintendent for teaching and learning, so we want to give her an opportunity to partake in this conversation and to help. And we know that Jen Martin has been out recently on medical leave, and you had an appointment to meet with her earlier, and she was not available. So
9 months ago, I initiated the request.
and I just explained how we happened to get here now. So I'm just explaining, Bob. You don't have to like it, you don't have to agree. I'm just explaining my point of view, okay?
Thank you. So there's a motion on the floor in a second. Is there any further comment?
I have.
Yeah,
I
Val,
have-
there's
oh,
hands up. Yeah.
Whose
I
hand
have-
is up? Carolyn.
Thanks. I want to say a few things. I'm going to second what Jesse said. It's not just Bob. I've been on the school committee. This is my second year. This conversation has been brought forward by members of the public. Members of the public, many, last year specifically asked for a discussion of WISP in curriculum subcommittee, including data. Rather than that being the discussion, there was a long presentation about what the curriculum is in K through 12. And I think that disappointed a lot of people. And it felt like, I'm just going to be really honest, it felt, I think, to members of the community like running out the clock rather than engaging with intellectual integrity on a topic that's of great importance to many people for big reasons that matter. So it's not just Bob, it's not just this year. And I'm just going to note a couple of sort of, I don't know if ironic's the right word. Suzanne, I respect that you're talking in detail about the process of making a change. WISP was added with no process. It was never voted by the school committee.
It was.
Okay, that's correct? It was presented to the school committee and voted? Okay.
Yeah.
Then I'm wrong there. We need to just have honest conversations about things that people want to have conversations about. And it's, I mean, I appreciate, Val, your point about the agenda and having an attorney lined up to address that. There was a committee meeting last year where we were talking about the school year calendar, and a motion was proposed, and I alone, and to my embarrassment, because of how it was received, said, we can't take a vote on something that's not on the agenda. And I was shot down and told I was wrong and, that I was essentially a troublemaker. So I want to make that point. So I'm glad to have integrity to process, and terrific that there was a lawyer on hand to tell us what our restrictions are. But it's interesting when those choices are made. And it's also frustrating to try to get something on the agenda. So I don't even know how we're supposed to get something on the agenda, and Bob is asking, and Val, I mean, if Bob is asking for this to be on the agenda, are you agreeing that it will be? You and Sarah?
There's a conversation. Suzanne, remind me of the date.
Which conversation? I'm sorry.
There's a social studies conversation, right? Is it in 2 weeks?
Bob, are you asking for this to be on the full school committee agenda or on?
Bob has a meeting set up, and I don't, it's right after the break.
Okay, so there were some frustrating things that happened today that I learned about going on in the system that caused me to make this motion spontaneously. A great concern about the direction of curriculum at the high school to some extent. I mean, because mainly the high school is spectacular. Mainly the high school is an incredibly rigorous place. I understand that. But people wait for 9 years to get to the high school and have a choice of a rigorous course such as honors and eventually AP. And so some of what I heard today that is relevant, which caused me to move ahead in this direction, was that I heard that from 3 schools, the guidance counselors and teachers of the 8th graders are discouraging the 8th graders from taking the English honors course, responding to literature. And I got that from a number of parents who are upset about it. And if that's the direction that we're going, sort of a subtle reimagination of 9th grade unleveling, where teachers and guidance counselors at the 8th grade level are discouraging kids, saying, oh, it's a waste to take the honors course. To me, that's a dilution of the power of the academic program in our school system and at the high school. That's why I went crazy and said, I'm gonna make a motion here that we're gonna just require the high school to incorporate an honors WISP program for the fall. I didn't want to wait anymore. You know, and that put me over the edge. And I apologize because people are annoyed with me. But I represent lots of people in the community. They elected me to this position. And one of the reasons they did is because I talked about sort of reigniting the academic center of gravity of our school system. And that's what this represents, to offer an honors course in 9th grade in social studies. That's part of me advocating for the academic center of gravity in the public schools of Brookline, which I want to protect, and that I see diminishing to some extent at the high school, unfortunately. You know, this is really hard for me. I love Anthony Meyer. I love Jen Martin. I worked with them for years, but I disagree with them on this, and I'm sorry. But I have to stand up for what I believe in and what the community, I believe, wants.
Bella?
Go ahead, Belle.
I have spoken with Jen about this, and so I think she's really open to anything. She wanted to be able to have the conversation, and she wasn't able to have it with you sooner. So this is not to disagree with anything that you have to say. I just wanted to correct that assumption about Jen. That's all.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Well, and I said that as well, Bob. Jen does want to meet. She wants to meet, she wants to understand, and she wants to address the issue.
This is not a Bob issue. There are others of us, I've been talking about this for 2 years, other people have, the community has. So now we're really digressing from the 2 wonderful courses that are proposed for us to vote on. But I would like, and maybe I'll raise this in new business, I don't know, as a school committee member, I don't think I've ever succeeded in asking for something to be put on the agenda and having it be put on the agenda. I don't know what it takes for something to be discussed in your docket meeting and make it onto the agenda. Val, Sarah, and Bella, my understanding is you control the docket. I think this is a broad discussion that's interesting and important and has been ongoing for some time. So I support what Bob is saying, and I guess I just feel a little uncomfortable with a response being like, oh, Bob, don't worry, you're going to be meeting with Jen.
The problem,
That's not good.
the problem is the lateness of the moment. The problem is that if we don't make a decision, you know, I'm hoping we make a decision to have the high school offer an honors program. I hope that Jen and Anthony agree with that. But it's very late because students are the course catalog's probably been, you know, prepared. And students are beginning to make their choices for 2026, 2027. And right at this very moment, WISP honors is not a choice. I want WISP honors to be a choice. So the timing of this is very important. So Suzanne, I know that we postponed the meeting that I was supposed to have with Anthony and Jen because of Jen's health. I respect that, and I'm happy to hear that she's recovering. But if we have that meeting on the 23rd, or I think it was 25th, but now it's the 23rd of February, that's well into the 8th graders preparing their schedules for the high school. And so that's why it's an issue. That's why the 12th hour is here. That's why I'm advocating to get this done. If we can get it done at the next school committee meeting next Thursday, that makes me happy. Fine.
That raises the question, what would it mean to get it done? Like, what does the world look like the day after the school committee votes to require that the high school offer this honors course next year, when there's been no preparation by staff? As far as we know, no staff buy-in yet. So the school committee just says, you're going to have this course next year. It's going to be called WISP Honors. What then? That's not what I consider getting anything done.
I will make a statement next week, if this is on the agenda, and I hope it will be, to explain a lot of the details that you're concerned about, Andy. The reality is that WISP right now is leveled within the classroom. You know that, right? There's spicy and then there's mild, and people get, and the kids get different assignments, they get different assessments, they get different reading materials, you know that. The spicy WISP curriculum today translates into an honors course easily, okay? That's what is being communicated by the high school and by the social studies department, that they have a spicy curriculum within WISP, within the heterogeneous classroom. To me, take spicy, and that's your honors course. You don't need preparation. And also, many, many high school teachers in this social studies department have taught honors world history for years and years. This will not take preparation.
As a point of clarification, are you sure that the spicy is offered in WISP and not in the English pilot?
Spicy is in WISP.
Okay.
Just one additional comment. On the frustration piece, I wasn't sure I wanted to say anything, but I will just add that when we had this discussion a year ago, at the time, it was what happened, as Carolyn mentioned, is the fact, you can go back to the recording, that the presentation used up everything but the last 10 seconds of our time for the meeting. And all we could really get to happen was a request that we'd review this. And at the time, I think the recording will show that the staff presenting said that they would have to collect some data and then get back to us. That never happened. So from my point of view, just let me finish. From my point of view, from like March to April to May to June to July to August to September, there was if there was a real desire, and again, we had the same OTL deputy director there, Jody Fortuna. So if there was a real desire to move it forward and to honor the question that the subcommittee had proposed to staff, it could have gotten done. It just was sort of left along the side and not brought up at any future meeting. It just wasn't.
Okay, so again, we said that we would come back to it this year. I'm not sure that we have buy-in yet from the social studies department. We might, I don't know, but I do feel that we need to give them the opportunity to have the conversation with us about what their concerns are and then what our concerns are. And I feel that we have to do that. And can we do that next week? Probably not, Bob, probably not. But we owe that to them. I, again, am quite bothered by the word required. We are supposed to be working together. We're not over them in the sense that we tell them what to do.
Okay.
We work together. Bob.
Okay, Suzanne, I'm going to
You know
respond
that's
to that.
important.
There are times in leadership when you have to make a decision that's going to annoy the people that you work with. And I'll give you one quick example, okay? Just bear with me. There was a time when the enrollment in AP classes at the high school was very, very minimal, okay? And maybe 10% of the kids were taking AP classes. So I had become the headmaster of the school for a few years and noticed there was like 10% enrollment in AP classes. For example, APUSH, AP US History, okay? There were 47, 48 kids in that program every year. I said, 10% of the kids, not enough. So I worked with the team,
Okay.
and we said, we're going to get rid of barriers to AP. Because honestly, when I looked at the way that a student had to get into an AP class, I don't know if I could go through those hoops. It was a very comprehensive application process to get into an AP class. What we did is got rid of the barriers to AP. We said, listen, truth in advertising. This is what the AP course looks like. This is what the demands are. This is what the expectations are. If you want to try that, do it, and we'll support you. It's important. You can do this. We'll help you, and then we'll celebrate your success. Okay, here's some data. That's it. I have data on a lot of stuff, but this is data that's very powerful. We had 47, 48 kids in APUSH. A couple of years after we got rid of the barriers to AP, we had 125 kids in APUSH, AP US History. 125 from 47, 48, okay? At the end of the year, we all know, they take a test, the AP test. When we had 47, 48 kids in AP, the average score at Brookline High School was 4.2, which is a decent average. You get college credit if you get 3, 4, 5 sometimes, okay? Okay. The average test score, when we had 125 kids in AP US history, was 4.3. Well, that worked. We increased the number of kids in the powerful AP course, and the scores went up a little. That was so counterintuitive. And by the way, today I asked Anthony a couple months ago how many kids are in USAP. He said about 150. About 1/3 of the kids at Brookline High School are in US History AP, doing well. And Anthony said that there's an increased diversity of kids in that course. The goal of a school should be to push kids, launch kids into high-powered curriculum and support them and help them be successful. And that's what I'm all about in this proposal, to offer an honors class for freshman social studies. There's no data that says that the unleveled WISP course does anything to accomplish the goals that the social studies department articulated back in 2019. I read all the transcripts. And again, if we discuss this next week, I have a more comprehensive presentation.
Yeah, I think Jen has some data. But what I do want to comment on is exactly what you said, which is when you were the head of school and you were the leader, you brought the people together from the department and you had a conversation and you talked about buy-in and you talked about trial and you talked about making it work. And you looked at the data. And that's exactly the thing that we want to do with our social studies curriculum coordinator. We want to work with Jen and we want to work with Anthony, and we want to have the conversation that says, what do we need to do to have buy-in? Are we off track or are we on track?
There was one more important piece of information, okay? When we proposed, the leadership, to the curriculum coordinators, to the chairs, that we were going to get rid of barriers to AP enrollment, they were very upset. They said we're going to dilute the power of our academic program at Brookline High School. One of the coordinators quit. She said, I'm out of here, I'm done, because I don't believe in what we're doing, okay? So what I'm saying, I'm sorry for the passion.
I appreciate the passion.
What I'm saying is that there are times in the life of a leader, and I consider 9 of us here leaders of the Brookline Public Schools, and there are times when we have to make decisions that are unpopular. We have to get into good trouble, necessary trouble. John Lewis said that. I view that now as my motto in this particular moment. And honestly, I rarely, if ever, told people what to do. I was always, working with people collaboratively. This is a moment that's unusual, but I am very, very clear, as you can see, about the need for leadership to make a decision right now about this.
I do not want our curriculum coordinator nor our head of school at BHS to quit. As you said, someone quit. I want to work with them. I want them to work with us, and I want to work with the staff. So that's the conversation we need to have.
In 2 or 3 years, the WISP honors is going to be very successful. Everybody's going to say, good move.
That
Guarantee it.
That may be, but let's do the process. Let's make it work. Can we have the vote?
I have something more I want to say, sorry.
Okay, but if we're veering off back to WISP, we are really afoul in a field of where we're supposed to be right now. But go ahead.
Okay, I'll try and say a few quick things that came to mind listening to Bob and Suzanne talking. One, perhaps next week we can have Anthony here just to talk about the genesis of this. Where did this come from? Where did this what was the pedagogical thinking behind this initiative? Why did they take away honors English in 9th grade? 2, social studies and English. Well, they've kept the English, but it's being discouraged. I literally have a text from a parent here tonight who's sitting in the curriculum, 8th grade to 9th grade introduction, saying they're discouraging kids from taking the honors and pushing the mild, medium, spicy, other subject. I want to say why this matters. This is really important to me as a parent and as an elected school committee member, why this matters. This is a whole year of our children's, our students, ninth grade. They're 14 and 15 years old. It's the first time they're in the high school. It's the beginning of their academic career in the high school. It's a time where we, as PSB, are saying, here's what we do, here's what we expect, this is what we do here. And if students are not challenged, and they're bored, and they're not seeing that what's expected of them is high level, you lose them. You lose them emotionally, you lose them intellectually. And the vast majority of students in BHS are the children of people who moved to this town at great expense for the schools. And it's our responsibility to live up to those expectations and to provide students, I will say, and I try not to talk about my own kids as a school committee member, but when you watch your student, your child not be challenged, it's heartbreaking for a whole year. And you lie in bed at night and think, did I make the wrong decision? Should I have moved somewhere else? Should I have tried to get my kid into private school that I can't afford? It's heartbreaking. It's really, really important to me. It's really important. It should be important for us. It's a whole year of a whole subject, and it shouldn't take until 11th grade when they have the opportunity to be in AP, to be engaged. We have to engage our students from day one. And there was one more thing I wanted to say about this that I don't remember now. We have to, Suzanne, you're talking about needing to make staff happy, and of course that's true. If we want to pass an override, we need to be thinking about the community. And the community has made itself very clear on this issue. So we need to be thinking about that.
Okay, thank you. Let's take a vote on the motion. Bob, how do you vote?
What's the motion, Val? Because
As the
I
two
made a
classes,
motion.
it's Suzanne's motion that was seconded by Jesse to add the two
On the
classes.
courses, the two computer science courses.
I vote yes on the two courses.
Okay, Carolyn,
Yes.
Jesse,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Suzanne,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Donna,
Yes.
Mariah,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well.
I have to say these courses sound awesome.
Yeah.
Like I wish,
do
I
too.
so wish they had existed when
Yeah.
I was in school.
Yeah, I got to go back to high school.
Yeah.
I want to thank your endorsement of the classes, and actually Brittany has ideas for more, but these were the two that we could fit in, so thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have non-aligned extra comp, hourly rates and stipends, review, discussion, possible vote. This came up at a joint meeting yesterday of finance and the full school committee. Mariah, do you want to lead us through?
Sure. So what you see in front of you and got in your packets is a slightly cleaned up version, as I promised, from yesterday to today. So the first section is the same as what we saw yesterday. I just rolled in the student intern rate, and that figure has been updated with the Brookline living wage. The community after-school programs that were all separate have now been consolidated into one block. You scroll down a little bit, Betsy, but again, those numbers are the same as you saw yesterday. If you recall, we talked, it showed 27 an hour. That was a typo, and it was 24, which was corrected. The director coordinator cost basis, that table is the same, just organized. Then you see the summer programs. That's exactly what we discussed yesterday. And if you could keep going down, Betsy, we had talked about the Star Academy team leader and not a little bit of uncertainty on that one. That was clarified between yesterday and today. Last year's rate was provided and this year's rate was calculated. And the BEEP enrichment director, yesterday we had said, oh, that was in the contract, but we wanted the reference and we didn't have the current information. So that is now in there. It should be 13,878, and that is a contractual position, as was stated yesterday, but we didn't have the information. So, and in fact, honestly, can I just say that it's contractual, so I don't think that it actually needs to be in this document at all, because this is only the non-aligned document, but I left it in there since we had it. And then you'll see this paragraph, or this table, I mean to say, it doesn't repeat the director roles from the previous one. I just consolidated. So this is all of the other staff rates that you saw yesterday. So no change there, just pulling it all into one thing. And then the stipends that you see in the bottom, I don't think that there's anything different from yesterday. If you could just scroll down a little bit more, Betsy. Yep, that's it. And so for those of you who weren't at the meeting, we discussed that basically the subcommittee recommended to the full committee the summer rates. We talked about how particularly this last table, a lot of the great work that's been done in sort of understanding the different summer director and coordinator and assistant coordinator and assistant director roles, to sort of come up with a rationale for that ensures that there's equitable rates set across the different programs. That was really great. Staff worked really hard on getting the summer program sort of in spick and span shape. And this table, though, has not been completely done yet, and there's probably not going to be time to do it this year. But we talked a lot about some of the different questions and things that school committee is thinking about, understanding, for example, I'll point out, for example, the first row, child study team. How much money total is in the budget for child study team? So we see some of these things that is listed for 800, but we don't know how many, for example, how many stipends are held for this, or what the total budget is, or any sort of measure that gives us a sense of scale or participation much more broadly. So we asked for that for the future. And so what the subcommittee did was we voted just to forward the summer program information, which, as you see, is this table and the two tables immediately above it. So the other staff rates that's shown now, the director and coordinator rates, and then the cost basis for those calculations. And so we could vote that, or we could just vote the whole thing to move ahead and not come back to it again, because our conversation yesterday really was very much about definitely moving ahead the summer programs, but staff not necessarily having the bandwidth to deal with the other stipends that are in that final table. So I guess I don't want to make a motion either way yet myself, because actually I am going to make a motion. I'm going to make a motion to approve the whole thing and see if we can put this to bed for this year.
I'll second that.
Great.
Any further discussion?
I'm sorry, Ms. True had a second? Jesse, thank you.
So I'm raising my hand, Val. Sarah.
Okay.
Our staff is very busy right now, and a lot goes on. And I just want to make sure that we're not going ahead too quickly on something that we can't reverse later. And the issue, when I look through all of this, the issue has to do with one director whose pay is going to be greatly reduced. And we have a real thriving program with Star Academy right now. And I'm concerned to make a rash decision. I do think that staff did a lot of, this table is great. The staff did a lot of great work to make sure that they understand how many days a program goes for, how many students are in it, how many staff the director is supervising. But I'm not sure that we really have great clarification on all that goes into these roles. And we might be doing something drastic here to be reducing by almost a half or a third one of these rates, which is all paid for by grant. So I just want to make sure that my fellow school committee members know that I'm not sure that extensive conversations happened there to make sure that we will really keep Star Academy in the same way that it has been. And Star Academy, really benefits an important segment, the ELs of our community, and that work that happens with students over the summer so that they don't lose out on their they don't lose hours in English, helps the classroom teacher greatly too, because there's a lot of work that has to do in order to make sure that you have your students, all be able to learn together. So I just wanted to highlight that in case people didn't know about that.
Thanks, Sarah. Anybody else?
I have a follow-up
And
question.
Bella has her
Oh,
hand
sorry,
up.
Bella.
You can go first.
Okay, thanks. So Sarah, I think you're talking about things that I don't know as much about. I actually, I know we talked about this before, so I don't fully know what Star Academy is. And I know that Star Academy it's funded, at least in part, by the Metco allocation.
Yes.
In
And then the
full-
rest is on another grant.
Sorry?
And then the rest is on another grant. I don't know a lot either, but the one thing that we do both know is that that director's pay is being decreased greatly. And so is it worth asking a few more questions before we perhaps really change something that's working well?
Okay, and knowing that some of it is funded by the Metco allocation, is there a way for some of the Metco allocation to be adjusted to readjust this? I don't know what the interactions are in how all of this works. So I'm interested in your concern.
Superintendent Wong?
Thank you. I want to speak to the introduction of the review of the stipends was to address inequity in compensation across different sectors. And so there will be a change that will affect a person in this role, but it was with a lot of thought that went into creating a formula that would make it more fair. It's understood what all the functions are. It does reflect a lot of work. And so I guess I just want to say that the changes are with not a lot of, it's not done without a lot of consideration.
I'd like to just know more about that. So a lot of consideration doesn't mean just the information in this
Sure.
table. It means understanding all the work that goes into the role and the lead work that needs to be done.
I don't know if someone wants to speak to Star Academy. Well, we have.
So is this on? Okay. So I think one of the challenges we have here is we had stipends that were greatly inequitable for people in similar roles. And so we were charged with kind of thinking about how do we bring greater equity to that. As we started to think about the components of that, the pieces that we looked at, because these are summer programs, they all have lead up work. They all have hiring to do. Part of that was factored into thinking about how many staff. The more staff you have, the more hiring you have to do, the more students you have. And so that kind of went through why we chose those pieces. Star Academy is funded out of 2 grants. It's funded partially out of the Metco grant and partially out of the Title III grant. So I think as we think about any of this, we also want to make sure that these programs are sustainable moving forward. So particularly as we anticipate the loss of some of our grant funding.
So I heard the word similar, so I think that I have to assume that that came with great evaluation on your part of equal roles for equal pay.
Yeah, so we looked at kind of the responsibilities of any of the directors and coordinators for these programs, as well as the assistant program coordinators. And I think the other piece you have to remember is while there's lead up work, some of that is being done within the school year, within the scope of their typical workday.
Thank you, Robin. Karen, are you speaking to this or?
Sure. I mean, I think the other piece, and obviously it's notable in terms of raising that, we started from a sort of there was no judgment, right? It was what we were tasked with is, this historical inequity, and to come up with a formula for all summer programming that took into account as many exigencies as we could. It's certainly not a perfect formula, but it was really a way to start the state clean and build the rates up based on an equitable formula with the knowledge of, as Robin said, all the programs have prep work, the pre-work is staffing, it's developing the curriculum, it's figuring out what's happening in terms of students, it's doing food service. So all of the directors have all of those different components. Then you run the summer program, and then there's post-work. And so we try to take account the full scope of what everybody does in summer. And so, and obviously the length of the programs are very different. As you can see, some are 15, 16, 20, 24, 25. And so that obviously, when we looked at the base rate, is impacted by how many actual days during the summer people work. And so, it is very notable, absolutely, but that sort of was our process. We were, there's no judgment on, it was really looking at, is there a way to do this with some more equity and parity in the system?
And you had the time to have the conversations with those directors to understand exactly what the role takes on. You didn't just do this information. You had time for the conversations.
We didn't have conversations with them about setting the rate. We had to start from a place of.
Sorry. You had conversations with them about the role. In order to make this evaluation that you're saying that the roles are equal, you had conversations with the individual directors.
We looked at their job descriptions that are part of kind of determining what they're hired to do.
Okay.
At that time.
Thanks.
We
Anybody
pulled all
else?
of the job descriptions and looked at them to see what their responsibilities were.
Thanks. Anybody else on this?
Just quickly, Val, it's Carolyn. I just want to repeat something that I was, yesterday's finance meeting was a joint full school committee meeting, so I was able to comment. So it's helpful to get this list, and we know that there are other stipends paid, and that some of those positions are listed in the contract. I don't know if they all are. At the risk of creating work, I'm just going to repeat a request that I made, sort of similar to what Mariah was talking about. I think we were kind of directionally the same. It would be super helpful for my edification, and I think for others and the public, if at some point there was just like a report, even of last year, like what were all the stipends that were paid, what the work was and what the amount was, just to sort of get a better understanding at some point, not tomorrow, of this whole sort of world of stipends, because I think they're a little bit in different buckets in different places. So that would be helpful for me at some point.
Okay. I think that we're moving to a vote. Bob, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Jesse?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes. Sorry,
Donna?
yes.
Yes.
Mariah?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. We are returning to public comment. I will remind folks that public comment is limited to 3 minutes. And next on our list is Heather Pritchard, followed by Angela Harvey.
Hello, my name is Heather Pritchard, and I teach 6th and 7th grade social studies at Driscoll. While I don't have a bird's eye view of district finances, I am well positioned to talk about what is happening in 6th grade at Driscoll and how we cannot sustain further staffing cuts. I want to begin by putting things into perspective. Just last year, 6th graders attended all of their general education classes every day, as well as world language 3 times a week, and specials like PE, arts, and conservatory each 2 times a week. They also had 1 extra block of math instruction and 1 extra block of writing instruction each week. They had advisory once a week, and it was taught by 6th grade teachers and guidance staff. They only had 3 win blocks, essentially study halls, each with their 6th grade teachers. This year, the picture is quite different because of staffing constraints. 6th grade students no longer have extra writing and math blocks. Their win blocks have increased to 4 per week and are partially staffed by teachers who don't even teach 6th grade. Only 2 of the advisory classes are taught by middle school or guidance staff. The third, believe it or not, had to be picked up by our principal. One might say all of these things are just a reality of a tight budget. I keep hearing the word absorb over and over. We, however, cannot absorb anymore. There are literally not enough middle school staff in our building to cover the state's mandatory times for structured learning. We are already not meeting these minutes this year for our 6th graders. I want to restate that. We are already not meeting state mandated requirements for structured learning time for our 6th grade students. This week, we learned that next year a full-time guidance position and half of our ETS position is being cut. The guidance position that is being cut staffs a 6th grade advisory class. The ed tech position that is being decreased staffs a weekly technology literacy class for our 6th grade students. This means that next year, we will be down 2 more periods of instructional time for our 6th graders, being even further away from state mandates for structured learning. 2 years ago, we moved into our new school. This new building presents so many exciting opportunities, including welcoming 4 sections of 6th graders to the middle school next year instead of our typical 3. The district, however, cannot give these students a proper welcome without also providing them with enough teachers and staff and delivering on mandatory state requirements for time on learning. Driscoll needs more teachers and staff, not less. Thank you.
Angela Harvey, followed by Archer Shen.
Hello, my name is Angela Harvey, and I am a 2nd grade teacher at Driscoll School. This is my 17th year working in Brookline, and I'm here tonight because I'm incredibly frustrated and disappointed that educators are once again being forced to advocate for fully funded schools. Fully funded schools are not a want. They are a critical need. It is baffling to me that educators must work so hard to convince the town of Brookline to financially support our schools. Driscoll is once again finding themselves in the position of having crucial roles cut from our staff. The latest proposal reduces the role of our educational technology position to a shared role across schools, as well as removing an entire guidance counselor position. These roles are not merely line items on a budget. They are imperative to our success as a school. The damage that will be caused is significant and the consequences long-lasting. Educators are expected to help students grow as community members, which includes developing their digital citizenship skills. Who do you think is creating and teaching these lessons across grade levels? Our educational technology specialist actively designs, implements, and collaborates with staff to ensure our students are being challenged and supported in their growth as community members. Every day, we are reminded that students are struggling with their mental health. How can our school support these students when staff is cut and then stretched too thin? Our clinical team will now be scrambling to manage the overwhelming social and emotional needs in a reactive way, rather than the proactive manner in which they are currently operating. It should not be the responsibility of the staff in this district to bear the weight of the consequences for poor fiscal management in the town of Brookline. Year after year, the town is inadequately funding our schools and expecting the staff to adjust and compensate. When will enough be enough? Why do we have to work so hard to convince you that we deserve working conditions that support all members of our community and allow for us to do our best by our students? As I often tell my students, do the right thing, even when you think no one is looking. Let me be clear, we are looking and waiting for you to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Archer, followed by Beth Gilligan.
Hi everyone, my name is Archer and I'm a 7th grader at Driscoll School. Today I'm going to be talking about the budget cuts going on, specifically the cuts around our middle school guidance counselor, Miss Levine. Miss Levine plays a bigger role in the middle school ecosystem than you might think, and without her, the whole Driscoll community would fall apart. First, I just want to point out the obvious in that Miss Levine does a crazy ton for Driscoll. And putting what she does on people who already have their own things going on is crazy. People say that when important people leave, the new person has big shoes to fill. But you can't fill shoes when you're already in your own shoes. And I think this is the situation that the remaining guidance counselors will face if Miss Levine leaves. Ms. Levine talks to students about challenges going on in their lives, manages the middle school by sending messages and announcements, and even runs clubs and advisory classes. Second, throughout my middle school journey, I've learned just how important it is to have somebody to talk to. And in middle school especially, it's important to have someone to help understand what you're going through. Ms. Levine provides that and more. She is an extremely important person in many kids' lives and has truly made an imprint on our school. Mental health is just as important as physical health. Next, I think the person that I have the most inbox messages from is Miss Levine. She sends out almost all the announcements for future events, and more than 1/3 of the notifications on the announcements canvas page are from her. Without those announcements, I think me and many other middle schoolers would be pretty lost and confused. For example, how would you find the panorama survey if there was no link to it? One final point I want to mention is the GSA. GSA stands for Gender Sexuality Alliance and is a club for LGBTQIA plus kids and allies to have a safe space to talk. Miss Levine is the one and only advisor for GSA, and without her, there would be no safe space for kids to talk about who they really are. I personally have gone to GSA myself, and it truly is really helpful. It's allowed me to discover and form connections, make friends, and most importantly, it's helped me and most of my friends discover who we truly are. All in all, Miss Levine provides a crazy ton for our community, and I think our Driscoll Circle wouldn't function and would collapse if she leaves. Many kids, and probably me personally too, would have increased anxiety and stress, and I'm guessing that's not something you guys want in your schools. Thank you for letting me speak, and I hope I have in some way changed your view around the cuts going on at our school. Peace.
Thank you. Beth, and then I believe it's, and please forgive me with pronunciation, Amin or Emini Fedvachi, and your students, your daughter, Delara, will be after Beth.
Okay, always hate to follow Archer. He's amazing. My name is Beth Gilligan. I'm a parent at Driscoll School. I won't repeat many of the powerful testimonials that have been made, but did want to draw everybody's attention to the open letter that all of you should have received earlier today, signed by over 100 members of the Driscoll community. We do that to not flood your inboxes. You're welcome. But you know, this particular issue is something that really hit close to home. I think we are all aware of the financial realities of the district. We're also aware that if this role gets reinstated, there may be something else that has to go, and that's really difficult. But the reason we've spoken up is because, you know, one of the things that happened at Driscoll last year was one of our VPs was cut, so we're already feeling the strain of that day in and day out. The morale, the logistics. Mr. Euclid and Ms. Lyons are incredibly dedicated and work very hard, but they can't replicate that. And that VP was focused on the middle school. So the notion of losing another cherished member of our community and of middle school in particular, it's a very vulnerable population. Everybody did kind of sweep into action. Ms. Levine is an incredible member of our community. Our guidance team is really a team. We feel so fortunate to have them. So if there are any other avenues you can find, we just wanted to bring that up and please encourage you to read the letter in detail and discuss. So thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Hi, I'm Emine Fetbaji. I'm a parent at Driscoll of a 7th grader. You've had a very long meeting. A lot has been said. I'll just I know you already know this, but given the mental challenges facing tweens and teens in the country today, the idea of cutting a guidance counselor from a middle school feels like the very last thing we should be doing. So I'll just, thank you.
My name is Dar Star, and I'm here to talk about the potential loss of the middle school guidance counselor, Miss Levine. So a few months ago, like I want to bring some attention to one of my personal experiences. A few months ago, a boy in my class who I trusted, he assaulted me and he put me in a chokehold, and it was honestly a completely, really, really scary experience. And when he let go of me, I started crying, like rivers of tears, and I was so scared to like hurt him that when I got home, I like barely got through telling my parents about this. And like I didn't want to bother them, but more importantly, I wanted to protect him, which like I see now was not the right mindset to have. But somebody who was there when it happened told Miss Levine about it, and I don't know who it was, but I am like so forever grateful to them. And Miss Levine helped me realize that none of what happened was my fault. She told me that it was okay to feel anger and grief. I told her I felt guilty because he did it to someone else as well, and he helped me see that my anger wasn't misplaced. Miss Levine helped me so much, and because of her, I had the strength to talk to a police officer about my experience and go to a therapist. If you get rid of Miss Levine, there will be no one for people like me to turn to. And if and when something like this happens again, there will be no one to encourage people to be brave, and it will enable the perpetrators to do something like this again. This will never not be uncomfortable to talk about for me, but for Miss Levine, I feel like it will always be worth it. She's an essential part of our school community, and it would not stand to be without her.
Thank you. Next is Jenny Murphy.
This is not my first time speaking with you guys. Good to see you. My name is Jenny Murphy. I am the technology teacher at Runkle School. This is my 19th year in Brookline and my 26th year as an educator. And I am here to speak about the proposed reduction to my department. The proposal is asking to reduce the elementary educational technology teachers from 8 to 4. Four of my colleagues are going to lose their jobs. This reduction has been described as an efficiency that will have no impact on students or teaching and learning. And I disagree with that. I believe a change like this will significantly impact teaching and learning across the district. I don't know if you guys know this, but we teach students every day. We don't fix Chromebooks. We teach students. We teach digital literacy, digital citizenship, research skills, responsible technology use, computational thinking, and the ethical use of emerging tools like AI. We collaborate with classroom teachers to integrate technology into their instruction so that it enhances their instruction rather than distracts from it. Cutting our department would mean fewer lessons taught, fewer teachers supported, and fewer opportunities for students to build the critical skills they need to navigate an increasingly digital world. Technology isn't an add-on to learning. It is now embedded in how students read, write, research, communicate, and demonstrate understanding. Reducing my educators on my team, because I feel like they're my people, who teach these skills will undermine the district goals around equity, innovation, and student preparedness. Finally, it is important to state that having to repeatedly defend the value of my colleagues and my team every budget cycle is disheartening. I didn't have to do that for 16 years. This started 3 years ago. Our impact is visible every day in classrooms, lessons, and student outcomes across the district. We shouldn't have to justify this role year after year when our work is central to teaching and learning in Brookline. I really urge you guys, the school committee, to reconsider this. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. That concludes public comment. We're moving on to subcommittee and liaison reports. Just want to mention that Monday at 4 o'clock, we have our annual meeting with legislators where we can talk with them about issues like the budget, the state budget, and how that impacts us here in Brookline, and other policy and legislative initiatives. It's hopefully everybody can attend in person. It's a great opportunity to really have conversations with our state and federal partners. So that is Monday at 4 p.m. Curriculum, is there an update?
Well, we've covered half of what curriculum was about.
All right.
And the other half was about vision of a learner, and is required by NEASC and NEASC, N-E-A-S-C. And they are working on it, and they're going to include, they meaning people from the high school, and they're going to include a student survey, grades 6 to 12. The initial work is going to be around the high school vision of a learner, but then we hope to make that K to 12 and bring that all in. What else? They're feeling good about what they're doing, the work they're doing. Robin is leading a lot of that work, and we talked about having an opportunity for school committee members to participate at some level or offer some input around the vision of a learner. So that is to be determined and to come in the future.
Thank you. Mariah, anything additional from finance?
I would just say that we are originally scheduled to have a meeting next week, but we're, I believe we will end up not holding that meeting since we had one this week and there's a lot of other stuff, competing priorities for staff.
Okay, thanks. Negotiations, Suzanne, anything schedule-wise?
The school committee team met, today, was this morning, and we're going to meet again next week, but we're not meeting with the bargaining unit, so we don't have really additional. Our next meeting with the bargaining unit with the union is February 25th.
Thank you. Andy, anything from policy?
No updates right now. We have a meeting at the end of February, but nothing at the moment.
Okay, ERSC, Mariah and Jesse, any updates?
Yeah, I just want to stay at the beginning. I wish there was a surplus. I mean, a comment was made earlier tonight about, well, there must be surpluses around in the town. There is no surplus. So what I want was, we're at the point now where the three subcommittees that Bella referred to earlier, futures, schools, and town, the town of which I'm the chair of, are putting together their reports that include primarily recommendations to be voted by the subcommittee and then be voted by the full committee. And those will become the headliners, as essentially, full expenditure and revenue study committee report. The drafts are coming together now for review by the full committee based on a weekly schedule. And by the end of February, we should have
Your mic died, Jesse.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right, I'll just try closer. By the end of February, we should have at least a final draft for futures, I believe, as well as for town. I think the schools subcommittee is still waiting on some additional budget information, and they're sort of ready to go with it as it's available. The key votes that have been taken that are on in the public record at the full committee level is a futures recommendation to invest in solar energy on certain town buildings with taking advantage of government federal tax credits to bring the capital costs down and to begin to attack the 10.3% increase in utility costs that we're going to be facing next year, and then hopefully in the out years, as time goes on, we continue to do what we can to hit that utility, to bring our utility costs down overall as we're going and building all electric buildings. The second one, the two that have been voted on the school side this week were, first of all, a more transparent, a pilot to look at a more transparent and open reservation system for rental facilities throughout the district to be shared by BREC and maybe run by BREC, and then for PSB to provide a system-wide view for people both inside the district as well as for third parties into what space is available, what the fees are, et cetera, in one unified system. There's a thought also that that could bring in additional revenue because it's very hard for people from third parties to sometimes even navigate to find out what's really there. So the vote was to at least start with a pilot in that direction at some point in the future. And then the second one was the some detailed work that had been done on modeling the school district's design. That is, from the current model to perhaps a middle school design, K to 5, 6 through 8 in the high school. And there's for those that want more information, all that report's online, so it can be, you can read further into it. On the town side,
Can I say more about that one, Jesse, just before you go
please.
to the town side? Just to be clear, the modeling that was done was very, didn't have a lot of detailed inputs into it and was done without the benefit of staff collaboration. But what it did show was the potential for savings, and ultimately the language adopted by the full committee was something along the lines of to encourage PSB to begin to consider this. Or to explore like a study. I don't even have the exact wording in front of me, but really the understanding is there could be savings, not how much, but there was certainly nothing determinative about PSB going to a middle school model or not at this time. I just want to be clear for anyone.
I
who
think
might
it
be
was like
hearing.
to explore a conversation starting in
Yeah.
FY27 or something like that was the language.
Yes.
Very long-term, Val, you're right.
Yes.
It's very long-term, wasn't meant to be immediate at all. And then on the town side, we got an upgraded set of numbers from Chaz this morning in our weekly town subcommittee meeting, looking at a potential override $5.3 million, which is about the same as what we saw 2 weeks ago. There's a $3 million gap this year. The revenue projections have increased somewhat in terms of what the town thinks it could get from increasing fees, parking meters, and other things. And nevertheless, the 5.3 million or so is a 3-year ask. Would take care of next year's gap, this coming gap, plus split into sort of a reserve fund for unanticipated expenses in FY 28 and 29. That 5.31 million doesn't include the schools at all. In other words, that'll come out of the school subcommittee in terms of what they, under SADAF, determine is the total amount of money that we as a district are asking for that would need to be covered by the taxpayer in order to be able to balance our budget in the next 3 years. One just final point there is that even with the override, the town is proposing reductions both in services and FTE, small, but still recognizing in the same way that I think Bella did tonight too, that there are potential efficiencies that, well, not potential, actual efficiencies that they're claiming can be made, and that there may be some actually service cuts as well. In the event of no override, the numbers are much higher, obviously, in both in terms of staff and services and programs that we have come to enjoy in the town. So more to come on that. The select board has to vote to put this on the ballot or not as an option. At the end of March, there'll be a public hearing the week before, sort of in the 20s of March. So this report will have to be finally, the full ERSE report will have to be ready just shortly before that, so there can be a public hearing as well. So in about a month from now.
Thank you. Moving on to new business, I've heard loud and clear about a conversation about 9th grade social studies. Any additional new business?
Yeah, hi, Val. I just want to make a statement having nothing to do with what we were talking about before. As we all know, we're celebrating Black History Month in our country, and we are experiencing at the national level a denigration of African and African American history, dismantling evidence of Black history throughout museums at the national level. And I just want to affirm that in Brookline, we do honor Black History Month, and I want to commend our neighbor, Author Conquest, who is, I don't know if you've seen his commentaries, but he's publishing basically a daily commentary on Black history. And it's interesting, it's informative, it's educational, and I just want to shout out Author Conquest tonight as part of our celebration of Black History Month. Thank you.
Thank you. Where is he posting these, Bob?
That's a good question.
Not
I
He's
know
been
he's,
emailing them,
it's
right?
the PAX email stream, and maybe on Facebook, the Brookline Town Facebook, maybe. I don't know. I don't, I can find out.
Thanks. Any other new business? Okay, seeing none, we have no need for an executive session tonight. So we will adjourn if there's a motion to adjourn. Everybody so moves. Okay, sounds unanimous. Thanks,
said-
everybody. Have a great evening.
Thank you.